Welcome back. It's been a whole 12, 24 hours since you last saw us. I mean, geez Louise, we have been everywhere and anywhere in between talking college football because, gentlemen, that's just what we like to do. We like to talk football, and we have assembled yet another fantastic panel. Coach Jay may be coming in, depending on whether or not he's going to make it, but we hope he will be making it in here. Always great to have Jansen here. Y'all know that's been my running mate on this live stream since I started this. But
Cooking last night.
oh my God, that was so funny. Do not get him started about Ohio State, apparently, because he cooked last night.
Yeah.
If you missed that, I think I should actually clip that and send that to him. That way he can post it on his channel because he cooked. But we got some other chefs in the kitchen today. Guys, go down the line, introduce yourself, and we'll do this, as always, the easiest way possible. We'll go Jason, Coach Sean, and then Jake. That way it's just easy for us to remember the order.
Jason Watkins, Hall of Fame, college football with Jason and the coach. You can find me here at CFB-pod on YouTube. And then, as you can see there, at JW_HOF on Twitter. Thanks for having me on, man.
Of course, man. Of course. Coach Sean, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Blessed to be here. Appreciative of being here. JMHO Sports Talk, just my humble opinion. That's all it is on Twitter and on YouTube, JMHO Sports Talk.
Yep, Coach SPH on YouTube. Y'all don't want to miss his fantastic content. We were live over there last night. He just did a video talking about the revenue sharing, the NIL, how that's going to impact everything. We talked about it again last night. Has done fantastic breakdowns on Alabama's running back room, on the blocking schemes, on the defensive staff. You don't want to miss what he's bringing to the table. And last but certainly not least, Jake, let the people know.
Yo, good morning, our friends and followers and everybody who jumps in with us. It's always a fun time to get in on the mornings with you guys. Hope you had a good cup of coffee or energy drink or tea, whatever the hell you drink this morning. Good for you. But hey, it's nice to be in here with you guys. Obviously, you can catch me on Twitter right now, and I'll be getting a YouTube channel up here hopefully this weekend and start doing some stuff so we can all join up. And it's fun jumping on everybody's channels and talking football, talking sports, talking whatever the hell you want us to talk about that you enjoy, period. That's what I like. You know what I mean? But Twitter, man, it's all caps, all capital letters, and it's Coach_J Mer, JMERR. So come follow. And again, it's just nice to be here with these guys this morning. We had a fun night, did a double header last night. Thought we were going to do a triple header with this guy, Jason, but it's all good. It's all good. We all laugh about that one. That's all good.
Burning the wick at both ends too much this week, man. He passed out on it.
Stud. Make sure you do follow over at Jason's channel. They does some really good content, man. They have some awesome stuff that go in there. And man, I got to jump in with you guys too.
Hey, man, yeah, no doubt.
We already have a question. We already have a donation. Brandon, thank you for the $1.99. Saying back in action, roll tide. Colin, I'm going to star this right here. And the only reason I'm not going to answer this off the rip is we have a little bit of breaking news, gentlemen.
Ooh.
And Coach Sean, I want you to start on this one. Matt Zenitz of 24/7 Sports does fantastic work. I mean, has really inserted himself as one of the premier guys on the national stage for college football news over this past year. Zenitz has been killing it, absolutely killing it. But per Matt Zenitz, and I quote, "Things are currently up in the air with transfer defensive lineman Simeon Barrow in Miami." Sources tell Gabby Ureta, who works for Miami 24/7 Sports Department, and me for 24/7 Sports. Barrow, one of the top spring portal defensive linemen, committed to Miami earlier this month. Some more info within the article. When you peer through the article, it just reinforces that headline. They don't know whether he's going to be there. And whenever we talked about Miami, that was one of the biggest wins Miami got in the transfer portal. Coach Sean, I know you have a burning love of the Miami Hurricanes, so I would like to start with you and your thoughts on this whole situation.
I personally think that Miami will mess up a sunny day in June and make it snow. I really believe that. Anything, it's kind of like the Stephen A. Smith take. Anything that can go wrong, wait for it. It will with Miami. I don't know what it is about the U. Great talent, great lineage of fans, great coach, per se, great history. I just don't know what the hell's going on, man. It's just like they can't get out their own way. For every win that they have, it seems like a L is just around the corner in some shape, form, fashion. I don't know what it is, man. It's like those guys are cursed in some type of way. It's like they can't stay happy too long. If I had to assume, and that's all this is a humble assumption, it's something got to do with money. It's something got to do with Miami's a private institution, so these guys can kind of batten their own hatches and do what the hell they want to do down there. But that sometimes will bite you. Sometimes you can get a little too frivolous, a little too loosey goosey, and it doesn't work out. These guys have signed some great athletes. What's up, Brinsky? Shout out to Brinsky, Sharpshooter Sportscast podcast. Sometimes, man, these guys have signed a hell of a lot of talent down there. Hell of a lot of talent. And I really do believe the culture in Miami is broken. I really do. I see when I watch them play, I see infighting on the sidelines. Now I know Mario, he's a vet from down there. He's from the area. Everybody knows him. Everybody understands him. It's a lineage thing. But sometimes, man, it just take a while. Sometimes you damn near have to get rid of everybody. And I do mean everybody, administration, everybody. Sometimes getting rid of a coach here or there is not enough. If the culture is how I hear it is down there, I just don't know if it can be fixed, without really, really cleaning house. And I mean really cleaning house from administration down.
Yeah, and we have Jay to Goat with the $2 donation saying Bama Natty 25, 17-0 beat Georgia by 17. That would be awesome. Brandon Wilkins with another 199 saying prime time to Miami after this season. Listen, I think that gets eyes on you, but Miami, how do I say this? I don't think that's the problem with Miami is eyes, right? Like certainly Coach Sean, you talk about this and very well-placed argument all the time that they don't have their own stadium. That would help with eyes, but like Miami is a national brand. The U, right? Yeah. Like even if you're just a very casual college football fan, the U. You know what I mean? Like they have a rap song, the 7th Floor Boys, right? Like, I don't know how many of y'all have heard that, but it's hysterical. I certainly recommend after this, you go listen to that. Greg Olson drops a verse on there, drops some bars. That's a lot of fun. But they're a national brand. And so, Brandon, while I don't disagree that Coach Prime going there would get a ton of eyes on Miami, is that the solution? And this gets back to something Coach Sean just said. There might be something deeper in Miami that's not working, right? And here's the other thing before I pass this to Jason and then Jake. You know who the other team was that was looked at as a favorite for Barrow? Was LSU.
LSU.
Yeah.
That gives us all a little bit of a problem, right? Because LSU, they need some more help on that defensive line. And Barrow, depending on where you looked, guys, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it either Dominic Williams or Barrow was the number 1 or number 2 defensive lineman in the transfer portal? Like 24/7 Sports had Williams at number 2, On3 had him at number 1, and vice versa, right? Like no matter how you slice it, they were 2 huge names in the portal that you wanted to go after. Jason, I'm going to go to you here. What are you thinking with this breaking news? And Jimmy already
first thing,
Greg the leg.
First thing I thought about was LSU and the BK saying a couple of weeks ago that they're not going to buy players at LSU, which was a joke then and is a joke now. I think that it's clear that they know that they need defensive line help in a big way. They're looking at playing a lot of freshmen as it speaks. I mean, if you really consider yourself a contender for an SEC championship or a national championship, which a lot of people have been talking about them as one of those dark horse picks to go all the way this year in their 3rd season, you have to do something in the trenches. You guys were talking about it last night. in the SEC, you have to win in the trenches. And they struck out on every one of their defensive line guys in the portal so far, during the spring and even during, right after the season was over with. So to me, I think it's pretty clear you have to go and get those guys. And so maybe what BK was saying, about not buying, maybe he changed his mind on that and just forgot to tell everybody.
Well, Jake, before I pass it to you, Jason, whenever he said that, right? Like I was like, well, you better get in the business of buying players.
It's such a dumb narrative.
Everybody is doing it. Now, this is the only thing. There is one aspect of this where I must admit, Jason, and I'm interested, Jake, before I pass it to you, I do want to get Jason's opinion on this, right? Because he disagrees with this notion. And I did too, until there was one thing someone told me, and they were like, well, one of the things he's saying is he's not going to pay a new guy more than the top paid person on his roster, right? Like they're not going to instantly make because when he said that, let's be honest, it was Dominic Williams, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
And that was throwing shade at Oklahoma and Dominic Williams too.
Well, yeah, sure. But I don't necessarily disagree with the notion of, hey, you're brand new here and I'm not going to make you the highest paid guy on a roster of people who have been here. But I do disagree. We're not buying. You better be buying, right? Like you better be doing that. But what's your thoughts on that in particular, right? Like this notion of making someone the highest paid out the rip.
I think that the coaches that are doing the best and the ones that are going to do it the right way, they have a good enough culture in their locker room that their locker room trusts them. If their locker room wants to win and you need to shore up a position there, here's the deal. You know what the deal is in college football now, and the guys that are going to get the most money are the defensive line guys that eat up all that space and stop the run and get after quarterbacks. If you know that that's the piece that for Oklahoma, they're about 8 deep on that defensive between the nose tackle and like the three technique guy. They're about 8 deep on a rotation right there, which is a great thing because otherwise you're not going to be able to compete in the SEC. When it comes to what they've got there in LSU, I'm not saying they don't have talent because they do, but it's real young. They don't have any kind of experience there, and so you're going to have to depend on guys like Dominic McKinley, which is he's a great looking prospect, but he's still got a ways to go. Sure. To me, if you're looking at that and you need this, why would your team have a problem with that? And if they do, then you're obviously not communicating, and that's not the right culture that you're having with them. Is that, look, that should never be something that's a problem within the locker room because you're open enough with all the guys that they know that you're going to do what it takes to win, but you're not going to bring in somebody who's going to fracture, relationships in there either. I think it's got to be more about the relationships that you're building. And if you think he can help you and be an addition to the team rather than somebody who's going to mess it up. That's why I believe that there's some coaches that are great at it and some that aren't. To me, BK, it smacks of freaking Jimbo to me, acting like, screaming sliced bread and that we didn't pay all these guys and all this. That's all that ever said to me when he was saying that. I understand that there is a balance that you have to strike in there, but I think that if you've already built the right relationships, you won't have to worry about that balance. And I think that, that's the difference to me. I don't know. Coach Sean, what do you think about that?
I think you're 100% right. And before you pass to Jake, let me say this too, to add on to what you just said. Keep in mind when you're talking about Miami, this is a team that had one of the most successful Nike camps in the history of college camps. I think they may have had 500 kids there, man. And right after that, they tried to ask the kids to pay at their personal camp. So people was like, what? They eventually didn't make them pay, but they asked them to pay. And then their spring game was not open to fans. It was just administrators. If you look at their spring game, it may have been 300 people at their spring game, man, because they didn't open it to fans. I seen Coach Hayes made a video about that. Like, what the hell are we doing? You don't open your spring game to fans? So when one commenter said something is broken at Miami, and I do think it's something in the front office. I do believe that.
Mhm.
Yep.
Nah,
Coach Rick's with the $4.99. Thank you very much, Coach Rick, saying there has to be something internal wrong with Miami. 100%. And Bishop with the 333 saying relational versus transactional. Jake, talk to me.
Nah, I mean, Bishop kind of with that comment brings it up, and you guys have all kind of said it. I think, it's interesting, Jason, too, with you saying, like, from a standpoint of this internal communication too with the players and the team. I mean, that is today, transparency is so important, not just from a football standpoint, but overall, like, cultural standpoint, because people get sick of all the false narratives, right? There's so much stuff that gets put out there, and that's what you hear. So from a coach's standpoint, you have to be transparent. That goes along just about anywhere, right? We get sick of the news not being transparent. So why would we want to come into a locker room and not be transparent and then get things sprung on us, right? And it's funny because with the transfer portal, with some of these guys, like in recruiting or like their positions or where they're going to play, like, with all the coaching changes too, and guys who maybe committed somewhere else, like let's say our guys coming out of high school who commit elsewhere or commit to a certain coach. We'll just use Alabama, for example, and Saban leaves, right? Now they come in with a new coach. Now they have all these questions. And if DeBoer goes in there and is not transparent right away, is not focused on the relationship aspect, then you lose probably way more than what he did lose. And it becomes a serious issue. Now, we don't know necessarily if that is the case at Miami, right? It's speculation, but at the same time, you do, Coach Sean, you bring this up, and Ty, you too, as far as you do have to start to question, like, all right, what is going on there? Because Miami, from a brand standpoint, you think they would be able to get things fixed way quicker based on the fact that they do have this notoriety. They do have they've the U, man, it has its own, it's a brand that is so well known. There's a reason why we talk about it. It's not like some BS, not like University of Idaho, right? We're not talking about them. It's the U. They should be relevant, but instead they're relevant for the wrong reasons. And now you have to start to ask, okay, what is it from a standpoint, from who's the last coach they had right before Cristobal? He's now
it's
Golding. Was it Golding?
No, it was Diaz, Manny Diaz.
Yeah,
Manny Diaz.
Manny Diaz is a good coach. Like, okay, so, and he seemed like he was going to turn things around, but there seemed to be issues, right? And he had certain problems he ran into, maybe something similar. Now you look at this with Cristobal, who again seems to be a good coach, at least maybe I should say recruiter, right? Because we can't slap a good coach on there yet, because he has to show some signs, and if he doesn't this season, well, I don't know how much longer he's going to be around. But what is going from an administrative standpoint going on that is causing Miami to constantly just be on the downside instead of the upside. So I gotta say, like, that today, the relationship aspect is so big. So I mean, especially, all right, the money thing is going to be talked about. We can't ignore it. Okay, that money aspect is going to be talked about. I think there's programs. I know Alabama, I believe Michigan, and I'm not sure about others. I'm sure there's different programs, but they all have like kind of a structure of how they go about, doing this promotion or NIL, soon to be their pay structure of new guys coming in, their freshmen coming in out of high school. Like, hey, there's guys here who have put in a lot of time, who have earned this. That's where we start, and then we work towards you. We're not bringing you in just to make all this money, when you haven't been here and proven to us like what you are capable of, or if you've met your potential, right? Yeah. So that's a big, and I believe in that model. Now, if you are grabbing guys who don't believe in that model, and then you got a character issue, and if you have a character issue, that's where you it's like, we talk about this, and this happens in the workforce. I mean, I know I can tell you right now, it happens in law enforcement all the time. As soon as you put a dude in there who has the wrong mindset and attitude, whether it's on a team, whether it's, like I was telling you guys, I worked like specialized task force, right? You put the wrong guy in there, and that team has to be really tight to do some of the things that we did. You put the wrong guy in there with the wrong attitude. Now you risk so many issues as far as morale, as far as functioning, as far as discipline. You start a cancer, right? And it just spreads, happens in the locker room, happens in the workforce. It's ridiculous. And you have to do your homework, and you have to do a good job. I'm be honest, today more than ever, and I know I'm long-winded on this answer. I apologize.
No, by all means, please.
I think today,
the point of us doing a roundtable.
Well, I appreciate you guys letting me talk so long, but today more than ever, right? You have to do a good job of assessing these players, not just from a talent standpoint, but from a character standpoint, because it impacts your locker room, and that impact can be detrimental on the field, right? It can be detrimental. All it takes is one or two guys to be in there, and trust me, I've been there, man. You know what? When I was at University of Washington, there were some dudes in there with bad attitudes. Bad attitudes. You want to know what happened that my freshman year? It was the worst record UW's ever had. 0-12. 0-12. And everyone was like, well, it's coaches. No, man. It was the type of dudes you brought in. I'm going to be honest with you. Your locker room can't be cliquey. You can't have some dudes over here who are putting in all the work, and then some dudes over here who are just complaining all the time, constantly complaining. Like it doesn't work. You're not going to win. So you better have a guy who can bring people together, motivate and inspire. And if you got guys on that team, either get them off or be able to change their mindset. And changing the mindset's it's kind of hard, right? So that's kind of my say to that.
That's what culture is, though, right? I mean, that's where
100.
it's 100% of it's what you do all the time and how you handle everything all the time. And so, like, you can't, if you're a coach, whatever it is that you claim is important to you, better be the message all the time. And so, and this idea that, to me, that some coaches like to push this narrative of the players are being greedy and all. I don't want to hear that, particularly from a guy like Brian Kelly, because you just made Bo Davis the highest paid assistant coach in the country, right? You have $100+ million contract. You've got a lot of high paid guys on that. He's making what, $10-12 million a year, and yet we're supposed to sit here and listen to you say we're not going to buy players, and some players just want to be bought, because that's what he was saying. And again, I feel like that was taking a shot at Oklahoma, at the player himself. That kid went to 4 different schools on visits. When he got to freaking Texas, they had a damn Lambo SUV right there for them to check out. Yeah. They immediately were trying to buy. I mean, look, I'm sure that the money was whatever the money was. I don't even care what it was, but they were all trying to cough up the cash. In the end, what it came down to with Dominic Williams was the relationship that Coach Venables and Coach Bates built with him and his family.
Yeah.
Period.
100%.
And if it wasn't that, then and if they outbid the other guy, which is pretty unlike them, because they're not going to get into bidding wars. They look at that the same way as like guys like Kirby Smart do. I'm sure the same way that Nick Saban did, the same way that I'm sure that Kalen DeBoer is right now. You're not going to get
Venables has got a great mindset.
It's got to be about more than just the cash. But to this idea that it's still wrong for you to pay the guy, if you think he's a fit and worth whatever the money is, what is it that I hate it that these coaches do that? I really do that. And then you've got the fan bases doing it, oh, well, they bought him. Stop with that. Stop it. You know what I mean? It's not that. Quit making it like that, because the truth is we are in a pay-for-play era now.
True.
Get on board. And don't tell me that LSU doesn't buy players. I don't buy that.
Well, and this is where, Jason, I 100% agree with you. And let me clarify something earlier, because I don't want to make it sound like I agree with what Kelly's. If he would have came out and said, listen, we got X guys on this roster that are getting paid this, and I didn't know how I felt about making. And Jake, to your point, I agree with not making a recruit the highest paid prospect on your team coming out of high school. Transfer portal is a little bit different, right? Because you with a guy like Williams, let's keep it on him. You know what he just did. You have film of what he just did in college. So it's not like, oh, well, I have to wonder whether you pan out. We know he's going to pan out. We know how talented he is. So that to me is different, right? Like if Brian Kelly would have came out and said, hey, I just don't know about, like, I got guys on this team who have been here and I don't know how, I would have at least been like, okay, I can understand where you're coming from. But to come out and say, oh, we don't buy players. First off, yes, you do. Yes, you do. And if you don't, you're in for a rude awakening. Yeah, because you're going to get your ass kicked.
And let me get on this real quick, Ty, too. Like, okay, so we get to this point of saying, can you guys hear me okay? Sorry, I adjust my mic. But you get to this point of saying, all right, this is our structure for incoming freshmen. How do we run a structure for incoming portal transfers, right? If that's the route we want to go, because we do need to do this. You're right, 100%. It does have to be, there has to be some sort of compensation. And you also have to look at what is the market value then?
True.
I think that's fair to say. And I think that's fair to look at the guys on your roster, as long as that's being communicated, of saying, what's the market value for this position right now? Because that's, especially now with revenue sharing, we have to take that into consideration.
Very true.
This position is worth this much coming out of the portal or within a team, right? And based on this guy's performance, you know, based on this level of competition, there are a lot of little factors. I mean, you're going to have to break it down to spreadsheet wise. You played this sort of competition. This is how you performed. We have to, you know, there has to be a calculation or a formula that says, this is what we potentially project you to, right, with your performance level in this league compared, or in this conference compared to this conference or this team in you know, competition wise. So from there, that is what we project your value at based on the market and based on these aspects. And then I think that's extremely fair to the guys in your team. Is that being communicated? You know, like Coach Sean said, you know, like at Miami, you know, and Jason said the same thing. Like, is there just like no, like, are we just taking a back seat, or is it taking like way too much time? And then, is over at LSU, it's not the right way for Brian Kelly to come out and say that statement, especially when you need dudes like bad, like your depth on D line, like that's going to be your
that's going to be their downfall.
It will. That's where you lose.
Absolutely. And think about this. I mean, you had, somebody said it in here a few minutes ago, but it wasn't wrong. It wasn't very long after that DK Moore decommitted. You know, so first of all, you're lying to everybody else, but and your players know that you're full of crap too, because you paid the guys that are in the locker room. Obviously there's NIL going on. I mean, the LSU women's basketball team, they're getting huge NIL deals, right? I mean,
Libby Dunn is one of the top paid athletes in the nation.
Right. So don't tell me that you're not that they're not going to get big NIL stuff whenever the women's basketball team is doing it. And I mean, that's as great as they've been. It's not LSU football. So don't tell me that you're not doing it. So first off, you lie to, you know, the recruits that are coming, and the guys that are in the locker room are like, that's full of crap. So I think, to me, you're just putting off the wrong energy there. Right. You're putting off the wrong energy. And then on top of that, again, it's the wrong energy part of it to me is that you're villainizing these kids whenever you're making all this money. But the other thing is that when you got DK Moore, I mean, good grief. Now all of a sudden you're not going to get him, or maybe they do in the end, but
no, I don't think they do. They're not in their top three. The top three for DK Moore is Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and I think it's Texas.
I do too.
Either way, and I figured that, I mean, all three of those guys are going to pay. But if you sent the message that we're not going to buy you, and now that's why he decommits, he's like, well, I'm going to get paid if I go to UT, or I'm going to get paid if I go to Oregon or Ohio State, you know. So you're kind of screwing yourself on the recruiting trail right there. And again, this is the pay for play time here.
Yep.
So why are we talking about this?
Very true.
I just don't understand it. And then the other part of it is like what we've been saying here is that, yeah, this money has to be slotted, and there's going to be, but the important thing is, again, transparency in the locker room, that you're not just BSing these guys, and you've got a real relationship with them, that if this is a decision that you make, that the coach makes, and the, you know, whoever's in charge of the NIL, if this is the decision, you know, it's because he's bringing something to this team that we need, you know. And that's where I think that relationships, as much as you want to, it's so much more important than people are putting it out to be right now, because everybody's talking about money. You're
100%.
going to get money. You're going to get money no matter where you go. But it's what kind of relationship can you build? Because, I mean, if you're going to get, you can get in bidding wars all you want to. How did that work out for Jimbo? You know, the first thing that they talk about, they're pointing up at the press box. That's where all those guys said that they're going to be writing your checks. Well, apparently they weren't even writing them. But, you know, that's the first thing they're talking about, instead of trying to figure out what is it that matters to you, to your family, that kind of stuff. If you're not doing that stuff, all the money in the world isn't going to matter.
Yeah.
Sooner Cowboys.
Get back off that.
100%, coach.
I tell kids all the time, man, you know, I go back, and a lot of my friends still coach high school ball. I tell them all the time, man, I don't care how many collectives tell you, I don't care how much they flash at you, how many little merchandise things, all the bells, all the whistles. There's no college in the world that just has a finite amount of money where they're going to keep doing this every year. There's no rich persons that's going to invest in a future of just giving you millions without some type of return. Please believe that. You may get your original million, you know, to set this thing off that we call NIL. You may get it. You may even get it 1 or 2 years, maybe even 3. But there's no rich person that's going to continually contribute to failure, right? Unless you're Boone Pickens or somebody like who just love the university like that. But I'll ask this question too. What's worse? Brian Kelly, a cat that shuns paying players but really doesn't believe it, or Dabo Swinney, a cat that shuns paying players and does believe it, right? He does believe you don't have to do that. So they both are very, very strange, or a little delusional. What the hell's going on? Maybe Brian Kelly's just smarter than we all think, and putting up a front and really paying everybody under the tummy. I don't know. But I can tell you this, just from knowing what I know from high school. I told you, I've been in the locker room when Matt Luke was still at Ole Miss. I was coaching high school ball then. And Matt Luke had a player that was committed. One of our players was committed to Mississippi State. But our head coach, Coach Wardrop, had a great relationship with Matt Luke. Great relationship with him, man. The coach at that time, who's not at Nebraska now, was in the area, right? And I guess this is how they used to do it South Florida. I don't know. Central Florida, wherever he was at. Dude just calls out of the blue, like, "Hey, coach, I'm in the area. I'd like to come by and see such and such." You know what I'm saying? Our head coach didn't know him from a can of paint, right? But he knew Matt Luke. So he tells the former Nebraska coach, "Well, it's not really a good time, coach. You know, they're testing, Give him the cold shoulder." And he right down the street, another high school, didn't let him come see the kid. Matt Luke calls 2 hours later. "Oh, what's up, Matt? Come on through, man." He's sitting up in the room, you know. So this kind of stuff goes on, man. So you're right. That relationship word that Jason was talking about is absolutely finite.
Well, let me jump on this and get some comments in here. Sooner Cowboys says, I think Moore ends up at Oregon. He very well could, right? I mean, they've got some good things going on there. I will say this. I like Texas's wide receiver coach. Like, out of the 3, I'd say Hartline's number 1. Then I like Texas's wide receiver coach. Then Oregon. All 3 have good wide receiver coaches, but Texas has a really, really darn good wide receiver coach. And if I'm not mistaken, he and Colin Simmons are very close. And so but listen, Oregon recruits really well. Brandon Wilkins says, I wish Bama could get more with Russell. That'd be great. Sooner Cowboys says, I think Moore's quarterback at Duncanville ends up at Oregon as well. And to quote one of the greats, not so fast, my friend, because we're going to talk about that here in a bit. It right now, per Steve Wiltfong's Sooner Cowboys, looks like a two-team race. Neither of those teams is Oregon. Looks to be SMU or Alabama, where he is currently on a visit and has talked about that was a dream offer for him. He could be flipping to Alabama if everything goes right. This staff saw him, and within the same day of Nick Sheridan seeing him, extended an offer and said, no, you can commit on spot. You don't even need to camp. You, my friend, can commit on spot. Now, Sooner Cowboys, don't get me wrong. Oregon is going to chip away. That's going to be massive, right? That's going to be massive, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. So are Caden Durham and DK Moore. What do you mean, like Duncanville players? Yeah, I mean, yeah, they all go to Duncanville. But I wanted to answer Coach Sean's thing right here. What's worse? Brian Kelly stating that he doesn't believe it and then actually doing it, or Dabo? I'm going to shock you all right now. I think Brian Kelly is what's worse. Because at least with Dabo, you know what you're getting.
True.
Yeah.
At least with Dabo, you know what you're getting. Right? Like, that's huge. Transparency. Jason, I loved your answer about relationships and transparency. Because one of the things that I have talked about is that, yes, we're in the pay-for-play era, but the transfer portal is also rampant. And you want to know the coaches that are benefiting? I'll give you a great example. Damani Jackson just did an interview. Great interview if you haven't seen it. But he was talking about how he was a silent to Alabama up until he took that last visit to USC, and then he committed to USC. And he said the hardest thing for him to do was call Nick Saban and say, hey, I know that I was a silent commit to Alabama, but I flipped. And I'm going to stay home and go to USC. Do you know what Nick Saban told him, Jason? He said, hey, I wish you all the best, and just know you always have a home here. A little bit of time goes by. Damani Jackson looks around and says, Alex Grinch can't coach to save his life. I'm going to hit the transfer portal. Michigan was pushing for him, right? And Michigan's done fantastic work with their defense, top to bottom.
Secondary, I mean, especially, is insane.
Incredible. Let's call a spade a spade. Yep. Hats off to them. I'm salty about them beating Alabama. I'm salty about how it happened, but I've always said respect to you guys. You went out there, you won the national championship. Good on you. Damani Jackson's back at Alabama now because he said that relationship. And even when Saban retired, one of the things I loved is Damani Jackson saying, hey, I'm taking it upon myself to be a leader here. Because, and he didn't say this, but this was my interpretation. That's what he thought Saban would have wanted out of him. That's the type of individual he thought Saban saw him as, was a leader in that room. So when Saban retires, Damani Jackson was saying, oh, you know, there were a lot of people asking questions. I let it be known right then. I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here.
Yeah.
That right there, Jason, backs up your point. Relationships. You're going to get money. But at the end of the day, if you're able to cultivate a relationship, which Brent Venables was able to cultivate a successful relationship with Dominic Williams, and it had it pay off. I also think that probably Tyler Guyton, and I understand he's an offensive lineman, right? But Tyler Guyton going there and being that successful from TCU was probably a great little indication for a Dominic Williams as well, who's coming from TCU, and he already saw one of his guys go over there and go in the first round of the NFL draft. By the way, guys, do y'all know that? I mean, sure, I'm sure you guys do, but Tyler Guyton started off as a defensive lineman.
Yeah, he was a bench defensive lineman when Bill Bedenbaugh went and got him. So this idea that Bill Bedenbaugh can't go and recruit guys, I mean, I know we're fixing to talk more about stuff like that, but
oh god, you know me, Jason. I've fought against that
as good as anyone, right?
Yes.
And so he identified what he needed, and he's, you know, back-to-back years they've had a first-round guys that they were 3-star dudes, you know, and with in the case of Tyler Guyton, he wasn't even an offensive lineman when he got to TCU. So in the end, it's, to me, I feel like, yeah, it's all about development. It's all about relationships and development. The money is always going to be there. And that's, somebody said in there that talking about BK and his fake accent and all that kind of stuff.
True.
It's a lot of stuff that, Coach Roybal talks about it all the time, being a Notre Dame guy. When he said that, he goes, oh yeah, this is more of the same. When he was at Notre Dame, it was, we don't get to shop in the same aisle as everybody else because of our academic standards, which was bullcrap. Because now you see, what are they doing there in recruiting at Notre Dame? Right now, they're number one in the country. I don't expect them to stay there because, they
already have their class full, basically.
It's basically full. And yeah, but they've been in the top 10 since Marcus Freeman took over. They didn't do that with BK there. Now, LSU kind of recruits itself, but I mean, to me, there's a reason why you're seeing them not land some of these guys, or you're getting flips and doing stuff like that. I mean, I know they're way up in the recruiting right now because it does recruit itself, but how do you not, with Bo Davis, who's considered one of the best defensive line coaches in the country, how do you strike out on all those guys? How do you strike out on all of them? And maybe they didn't, but hey, kids see through bullshit as well as anybody does.
Mm-hmm.
They're not stupid. So if you lie to them, they're immediately going to know. And he just, to me, BK comes off as full of crap. And the people that defend him all the time in the national media, it drives me crazy.
Well,
I don't understand it.
I want to give Coach Sean the last word on this before we transition. And then Anthony Steele saying, so we're just going to sit here and say teams like Bama weren't at the center of paying. Brother, you could eliminate the name Bama and say teams. Right? Yeah. Everybody always wants to say Bama because Bama was kicking everybody's ass, but everybody was doing this. And I can bring up so many players that have played that were recruited by everyone that will look you in the face and say, oh, you think they were the only one? No. This was a college football thing ad nauseum, right?
Fact, man, these people don't.
It was everywhere and anywhere. They were getting poker chips, farm equipment, you name it.
Yes.
You name it. It was everywhere. But you're right, Anthony. This is not new. The pay for play is not new. It's always been there. Everybody was doing it. Now it's just legal, and it's exploded. So, Coach Sean, I wanted to give you this last word because we started this off talking about Simeon Barrow and Miami. But the topic was Bama. We haven't been talking about Bama. We were talking about LSU.
Yeah, we were talking about Miami and Simeon Barrow, and it got to LSU.
Yeah, we haven't had a topic on Bama yet, Anthony. But regardless,
we're
going to. Coach, I think the only thing I did say on Bama front is that they were after Keelan Russell, that they had extended that offer to him. Sooner Cowboys was saying he might go to Oregon, and he very well might. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Oregon can't recruit with the best of them. He very well might, Sooner Cowboy. You're 100% right. We know how they do. But Bama's really pushing. Wilt Fong thought it was a two-team race, but it's also so damn early. Who knows what's going to happen? You could end up being very well right, Sooner Cowboy, on both Moore and Russell, though I certainly hope Russell ends up at Bama. Coach Sean, I wanted to give you the last word on this, and I want to do it with a question. We talk so much about how Billy Napier's on the hot seat. But ladies and gentlemen, Billy Napier's got the hardest schedule I may have ever seen. In my opinion, that buys him a little bit of a grace period because it's not like anybody's looking at Florida and saying you're a finished project. They're still in a rebuild. I have been of the mindset, Coach Sean, that Mario Cristobal is also kind of on the hot seat, but it's a quiet hot seat. I'll tell you why. Miami has a cakewalk schedule. If they go out there and don't excel, if Cam Ward isn't Cam Ward and yet another quarterback that goes to Mario underachieves, how do you keep him? So who is under more pressure, Coach Sean, Billy Napier or Mario Cristobal?
I personally think it's Mario Cristobal. And I know that sounds crazy considering the fact of what we all deemed what's coming in the future. But when you look at Miami, they're hitting on everything. Right now, they're getting every recruit they want, per se, right? minus a little, minus some little wiggle room here or there. They're getting great recruits at Miami. I personally think they're out recruiting Florida in the transfer portal, right? When you look at Miami, I do believe that they've played better than Florida. You know what I mean? In spurts. Florida. That's just a whole nother can of worms opening that what they got going on down there. I think Mario Cristobal is under more pressure because of how that fan base is, right? When you look at the past coaches, Manny Diaz, even the young man before him, we talked about, I think Al Golden, if I'm not mistaken. Manny won some games down there. Manny won some games. There were some times when they had 8 wins, maybe 8. I know that's not Bama standard, but 8-4 after some of the seasons I've seen in Miami. That fan base, man, they're a little itchy. They what I mean by itchy is they want to scratch it. They'll scratch that itch, man, and they'll pull the trigger on getting rid of Mario, right? Mm-hmm. They have a very, very finite love-hate with their coach at Miami. Miami fans, and this is no disrespect to them, but it's just the truth.
Manny wasn't doing bad when they fired him. I mean, he kind of flipped it, right?
Yes, sir, Jason. You hit the nail right on the head. That's what I'm trying to say. But I will say this about their fans, man. It almost seems like the administration catered to the fans because that fan base, man, listen, and this is no disrespect to them, but this is the truth about Miami. Miami fans may possibly be the most delusional fans in college football. Like they won so much, like they just really, I mean, they to me, they worse than Alabama fans because if Alabama fans have a 7-win season, man, they're ripping bleachers out of the stands, bro. You understand what I'm saying? They're gonna not only tell you we suck, they're gonna act like we suck. They're not gonna pull no punches at Alabama. It's no gray area. You're either good or you suck. 11 wins. What is that? We don't care about no damn 11 wins. We want a championship. It's either that or nothing. Yeah. Miami fans will win 6 games, right? And they still talking about Ray Lewis going to come out of the tunnel any minute now. Ed Reed will be here in just a second. Just hold on. Right. Be safe. So I get it though, man. I get it. But that fan base, man, they probably have more content creators than I've seen that they just go in on their coach, man. He lose one game and they turn on him, boy. I mean, just like that. So I do believe, to answer your question, that Mario is under more pressure.
And I open that up for y'all as well.
I think he should be under more pressure. I think he should be, because when you see, I mean, we did almost a whole show about this last year when it happened, but when you don't take a knee against Georgia Tech and it turns into a loss in the last minute, things like that, you've recruited in the top 5 even over the last couple of years, and you're not, I mean, you're fine, you win and finally beat Clemson, but you lose to Georgia Tech. You're losing, you're in the ACC, which is not, I mean, we talked about this last week whenever we were on with you, Ty, but the ACC is not very good right now. You've got, it's winnable for sure if you're Miami getting the kind of recruits that they're getting. So to me, and now you have a pretty light schedule in terms of that. When you look at Florida, they probably have the toughest schedule in the history of college football. If Billy wins 8 games, they should build him a statue.
I say the same thing all the time. If he makes a bowl game, build a statue.
With that schedule, he's got to get a lifetime contract after that. You know what I mean? And on top of that, I don't think they get rid of Billy unless they just have to, because they want to see DJ Lagway come onto the field. Point. If Billy's gone, who's to say what happens with DJ?
Great point.
That's spot on. I mean, I obviously second what you guys are saying. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to jump over straight to Florida. I want to see them be successful. I think if there's another team for me that I actually do enjoy watching in the SEC, and it's funny because they rarely play Bama. It feels like, you know what I mean. And when they do, it tends to be we go back in history, there's some decent games, but. Right. But I will say, from a standpoint with Napier, I think what's interesting, right, is with this lawsuit, which he handled it. If you saw him at the SEC spring conference, right, basically, He handled that really, really well. I mean, he was cool, calm, and collected. There didn't seem to be any. I mean, and he just was like, man, it is what it is. He obviously feels pretty decent about it. He's not too concerned, it seems like. And we have to also speak to with Florida. What's interesting is like we do look at their recruiting right now, and they are on the list for a lot of big name prospects. Like, and if those, you know what I'm saying? Well, and
Florida,
but
man.
True fact, but at the same time, I think it's also though it says something to what those guys are noticing, maybe behind the scenes that we don't get to see. Because I mean, what people don't realize is all the stuff that goes on back behind the scenes, right? Like from a media side and all of us talking football on the outside, we're talking just, maybe
outside looking in.
Yeah. A lot of guys have like maybe some sources from like major news outlets and whatnot. And that's beneficial. But even those sources are pretty, they only have like 25% of what's real inside those locker rooms and what's actually going on. So even when you have major outlets like On3 or 247 or Rivals, yeah, you're going to talk to some people who have some good knowledge of what's going on, but it's not all of it, right? They're not in there. They're not. It's not the coaches. You know what I'm saying? It's not the exact players in the locker room. Everybody coming together, and you're experiencing what they're feeling and what's going on. So I think there's some positive back there, and you have to say, I think it puts some pressure on Florida's from an administrative standpoint, like the athletic administrative standpoint, they're in a unique position because you have this fan base who is sick of going through, I guess, this cycle of not being as relevant as they used to be, right? Their expectations are very high for Florida, which is interesting too, because besides Spurrier, besides Urban, like when else are periods of time where Florida is just like popping, right? It's not, nothing comes to mind for me. You know what I mean? I look at time frame like I was being recruited by Florida during the Urban Meyer era, right? And I mean, it was popping. It was like Florida was like the place to go.
Oh, yeah.
And you look back and you look at those time frames, it's great, but now we're in this position where Florida has to they've been in a constant rebuild, right? It just feels like constant rebuild. So I'm rooting for Napier. I do think it's on the upside for them. With his recruiting class, if he does semi-decent with this crazy schedule, and they do return, their productivity actually is pretty good. You look at what they return on offense and defense. Yeah, they lost some key pieces in player wise, but from an overall returning productivity, they're still up there. So they're not necessarily in the middle of the pack. They're towards the the top end. So if they can put something together, then I think Billy's all good. I just think maybe they get really, really detailed, transparent, and strict on how they go about the collective NIL money aspect, right? I think you're going to see them change a lot of things from how they communicate it, because that was yeah.
I think that college football definitely, I would say this, it's a better product when Florida's a good team. You know what I mean? When they're good, it's definitely better. And in the SEC, I mean, you think about when Urban was there, and it was him and Saban going at each other year after year after year. You want to talk about something that would boost up the world's largest cocktail party? It's them being good and not getting steamrolled by Georgia every year.
True.
Yeah.
Sure, that's why I couldn't put that rivalry up. We were talking last night, Jason, about the best rivalries in college football. Right. And I think we all agreed, listen, if you're a fan of any of the teams involved in the big three, which I believe is the Red River Shootout, the Iron Bowl, and the big game, you have your principled argument for why yours is number one. And someone asked about the cocktail party, and I said, great game. But I mean, right now, it's not competitive, right? And that's kind of why, to me, even the Iron Bowl and the Red River, in terms of viewership, the big game beats them all. I mean, that's dumb how many viewers they get. Did you know they doubled the Iron Bowl? They are at 19.1 million viewers. Bama and Alabama
stuff though too. And I mean,
true.
And they were both really going for that playoff spot. I think that has a lot to do with it too.
Yes, no doubt. But that's still insane. Right? For the Iron Bowl to be at 9.1, the Red River Rivalry to be at 8.01, and for that's just insane.
True.
But
in Ty, someone put out a last night. Like, I didn't see this until I rewatched, because it's hard when that's the thing where everybody in the chat, and hey, we appreciate you guys being here. Also, if you didn't see, we put out a Twitter to say we're on. Make sure you guys retweet that for us. Bring people in. We love talking ball with everybody. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of fun. But somebody had put in the chat last night about like a 10-year from like 2009, 2019, and it looked like the Iron Bowl actually averaged 11.1 million. So that was the interesting part, because we did talk about the relevancy based on the year, right? Because last year, the big game, whatever you want to call it, between Michigan and Ohio State, it was because there was playoff implications heavily involved. So of course everyone was paying attention. I also think, if I'm correct, wasn't it the last game out of all the rivalries? That was the last game of the day.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was too, man.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right.
Well, gentlemen, I do want to say this right here. We've gone 56 minutes talking about this is the beautiful thing, ladies and gentlemen. If you're coming in here, Stephen, we're about to do the reveal right here live on the channel, right? NCAA gameplay reveal. We're about to pull up Hayes Fawcett's tweet.
I love it.
And look at it and talk about it live, right? But I just want everybody to know there's a positive and a negative about when we all get together. As you can see by the title, we were going to talk about the Ty Haywood battle. We were going to talk about Keelan Russell, whether or not Alabama could flip him. We had breaking news this morning, and we've gone 56 minutes dissecting every possible angle in this breaking news, how LSU relates to it, how they messed up to get to this point, how Miami messed up to get to this point, and the entire implications around college football. You want to talk about where you need to be getting your college football analysis from? Look at the gentleman right here on this panel. We've gone 57 minutes talking about a topic that wasn't even on the docket, and how all it intertwines. So fun stuff there. I'm going to pull up Hayes's tweet.
Do that. This room's getting warm, everybody. I gotta take the sweatshirt off. 1 second, because this is an OnlyFans.
Yeah, y'all gotta pay for that content.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that anyways, bro.
Okay, so here we are. Let's get all this situated.
All right, we're back. And Adam, I see your comment down there. If I would have played for SC, no, man. I wouldn't have even seen the field. Their depth was insane, dude. Like at safety, it was nuts back in 2006. Trust me. One of the guys I knew pretty well was Taylor Mays. So, yeah.
All right, let me know if this goes full screen. Did it do it?
No.
It says click to exit it. It's just no. It's not really showing it.
Okay, well.
Can you zoom a little bit?
Ooh. Dude, I so can't wait.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
All right, guys. We have our new EA reveal. This is per Hayes Fawcett. Want to make sure he gets the credit where it's due. This came out 2-3 minutes ago, so you're seeing this as we're seeing this.
Nice.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm gonna break someone's ribs.
That's real. That's real, though.
That is real. That is real. Running an option. I love it.
Justice.
Yep.
Why you got to show that?
That's how we felt whenever the original one came out and it had Jalen Milroe getting sacked. We were like, what the hell, man?
Why?
The passing concept's interesting.
Jason, they have shown Jackson Arnold getting injured twice.
Oh, rat bastards.
What is happening?
Seriously.
It's wild, man.
Whoa.
I mean, they put. I wonder though. You know, you've always got the Madden jinx and stuff like that, and my concern is that they got 2 guys on the cover of the game in Quinn and now Travis Hunter too that have already been injured. So you wonder if it's not going to be bad for him anyway.
Oh, don't say that, because on the big cover it's a bunch of people, and Jalen Milrose on that.
I can barely see him. It's all good.
Inside zone. It's fake.
Yeah, I like it.
That's pretty awesome, man. I love this game. I cannot wait. It was a tear. I stopped buying game systems and games whenever they got rid of college football. You know, that's I mean, I've never been a huge Madden guy. I love Madden, but I mean, it's nowhere near the game that college football was.
I wonder if you can go back in time and get money from them, because in the 2006, I'm in that game.
Dude,
that's awesome.
Well, they already didn't pay these players very much, so they gave them like $500 for their NIL and a copy of the game. It was like nothing. I mean, if you could get that, that'd be worth it, right?
100%.
We were in the game. We always have Shoddy on from Fanatic Sports. That he played for Georgia.
Oh yeah, he's definitely.
And like he was like, man, I was in the game too, and all that, and I didn't get nothing out of it, you know.
Yeah, I know, dude.
Trap.
But back then, though, too, when they did this, look, there's Washington. That's funny.
Dude, what a great stadium that is, though.
I see they run the hell out of inside zone
a long time ago.
The absolute hell out of it, coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Jason, what, Washington Stadium?
Yeah, dude, on the freaking it's the sound, right? It's the or the lake anyway. The sound,
Lake Washington. Yeah, it's pretty.
So pretty, man. So pretty.
You know, it's great when it's nice out. Like when it's nice, it's awesome, man. When it's cold though, the wind comes through because it cuts off that lake. It's freaking.
I bet Edwards is going to be a monster in this game. For them to have him on the cover. Yeah.
What an option.
Everybody was talking about Jalen. People who've played the game said when Jalen Milroe takes off, it is like he is so fast and so hard to bring down. That's going to be fun to use.
Oh, here he is. Look at this. In the perfect corner.
That's so sweet, man.
What day is this game? What day is this coming out?
July. I think 15th is the actual release date, but let's be honest, I've already pre-ordered mine. So
if you
I got me too.
Yeah,
I just didn't know
what you get it 5 days early. I think is what it is.
I think it's 3 days early. Or at least that's what they do with most of these pre-order games. If you get the upper edition, you get 3 days early. And you bet I'm already getting it 3 days early.
Dude, I cannot wait.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be fun.
I cannot wait.
Yeah, 3-day early access for the deluxe edition. But I'm not getting
we're going to be at SEC Media Days, but they better have something set up at SEC Media Days, because if not, nobody's going to want to stay for the whole 4 or 5 days of it. Because
Jason, I can promise you this: when you got, like, hypothetically, let's just say you were going to SEC Media Days, you guys in the Big 12 have never seen a media day like you about to see credentialed at these media days for the SEC. The credentialed media is. Brian Kelly was like, I've never seen anything like this. It's crazy at SEC. I've been to SEC Media Days. It is stupid out there, man.
I went a long time ago whenever I worked, whenever I was still writing. But that was quite a while back that I went to it. But yeah, and Big 12 was cool last year. They had it a lot better. But I think that doing it in Dallas is cool. But SEC Media Days is just I love all that kind of stuff anyway. And then the next week I should be going to the Big 12 again. There
and watch how the difference the SEC is like.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't know if you've been checking on Twitter, like when Texas and Oklahoma actually made the announcement, yes, we're coming. Look how all the fan bases, like, you'll see players, you'll see everybody like cheering you guys on, because the SEC is like, now y'all are part of us. So we're gonna beat up. Yeah, we're gonna beat up on each other, but can't nobody else beat up on you. No, if they outside of the SEC, F them. Like, you'll see that. You'll see all the Bama fans cheering for you'll see the SEC pulling for the SEC unless
it's Auburn or Tennessee, and then in which case you're not going to see a Bama fan. But
I'm never going to root for Texas ever.
Fair,
yeah,
fair.
that's fair.
Let everybody know that. I would root. You got to root for anybody but Texas. But I get it. I mean, it's cool. That's the cool thing for Oklahoma fans is like, man, you want to go play those guys. You want to go play those guys. Talk about who they played in. Look, I think that Kansas is obviously a lot better than people are giving them credit for.
I agree with that.
In that loss, I would say that Oklahoma State. I don't know. I'm going to talk about that game, but in the end, I think that you're going to go every week. You're going to have to go through it, and I think more than anything, I'm excited about going to all these new places. I cannot wait to go to places like Grove and to go to, obviously Death Valley and it'd be great whenever you get to go to T-Town and go and watch Oklahoma play there. Same with Athens. I mean, Tennessee, 110,000 people freaking out. I mean, it'll be fun. It's just, I've been to Columbia. Don't care at all about that one. But the rest of them, I definitely want the Grove. I'm excited about trying to check that one out. I haven't been there.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yes.
LSU is different.
This is what I will say. Go ahead, Coach.
They
peed on your car.
Yeah, they pissed on our car, bro. On the car. I told my homeboy had a son playing for them at that time. And I had the Bama flags on the car. I told him to take these Bama flags down. We were in they had like a little section for the parents parking. And I said, bro, let's take these Bama flags. We're playing Alabama. He's like, nah, man, let's leave the Bama flags up. Nah, it's okay. I'm like, bro, let's take even the little parking attendant, like, y'all might want to take them flags down. He didn't take them down. We come back, the Bama flags are bent off the window and a piss line going all the way down the damn car. It was pee because I could smell it. Those fans are different in Baton Rouge, bro. Trust me.
I think, the hope is that you don't run into any of that kind of stuff. From what Kyle, that's usually on our show or in the comment section of our show, he lives down there, and he said it's usually you're usually good to go unless during the game sometimes they'll yell and all that stuff, but most of them are pretty cool. And I've noticed that most fans when you're in game and stuff like that, there's going to be a little trash talk, but for the most part, people are very welcoming. You know what I mean to outsiders. I don't know that you can expect that in certain places in the SEC. So it is what it is.
I saw a 12. I'm just assuming he was 12. He looked like he was about 12 or 13, maybe.
Yeah.
Kid had a Bama button, like roll tide button. For some reason, he was selling. I don't know if he was selling the button. He may have been selling the button. I don't know. When I tell you he was selling popcorn and stuff and peanuts and stuff in the student section, brother, when they seen the button, they was throwing their empty containers at the kid. The kid was a young kid. They was throwing the wrappers at him, just bombard them. Everybody was like, what the hell? And listen, man, those Baton Rouge people, when they get nice and juiced up, nothing like it in our conference, man. I promise.
And they start playing neck.
Yes. Yes. It is.
What's the deal with neck?
Different.
Have you ever heard it?
You got to hear it. But see, when we say this, though, that comes from an HBCU school. Let's just get that out there. That is the HBCU, Grambling University. That is their thing. LSU adopted it. That is Gramblings. And it's either Grambling or Southern, one of them. But it's different. And those, I'll say this, man, LSU fans, what make them so over the top is because their fan base is exceptionally young. When you look at the core fans in their stadium, I would say 60% of that stadium, when it's a full packed house, is between 20 and 40. Right? They have a lot of young fans there. It's some older fans, obviously, but their student section is huge. Like it's huge, man. I don't know if I've seen a bigger student section than that Baton Rouge.
Good for them. Brandon Wilkins saying, "Who's the real UT?" Jason, thank you for the 199. Jason answered him saying Tennessee. And then Anthony says, Ty, I honestly
say it because I hate Texas. I don't care. They want to argue that point. I'm going to take the side of Tennessee. Plus, Josh Hawkins is the head coach, so
Anthony says, Ty, I honestly think both the defense for Oklahoma and Texas are still behind a little bit. They're great Big 12 defenses, but I don't think they'll be ranked in the top 15 SEC. Oh, they'll be in the top 15 SEC defenses, right? Because it's like Vandy ain't got a defense. South Carolina ain't got a defense. Kentucky, they're going to be an interesting team. LSU was ranked like number 120 in the nation last year. A&M, they have talent on that defense. Let's be honest. I think A&M will have a decent defense. But I think Oklahoma and Texas have both been trending towards that, right? Like Texas has to. I have questions about their secondary. I have questions about their interior. But Anthony, this is what I'll say. Oklahoma ranks 8th nationally in returning production on defense, number 1 in the SEC.
And they got better.
Now, their offense is where they are 111th in the nation in returning production, last in the SEC. So, and I think that they have great offensive pieces, but I think that their defenses will be well within the top 15.
Well, and I was fixing to say, I'll give you a hot take. They're going to be a top 10 defense.
Mm-hmm.
Nationally or in the SEC?
Nationally, they're going to be a top 10 defense. In the SEC, they're going to be top 3 at the worst, I would think.
That'll be. I think they'll be very. I don't know about top 3. That's tough. I'm not saying it's impossible. But
I think that the pieces that they had to get on the interior is a big part of it. But the linebackers, the linebacker play is going to be considerably better.
True.
And that secondary, people did not give them a lot of credit there. But having Billy Bowman coming back and Peyton Bowen, look. When he was in and he got nicked up a little bit last year as a freshman and stuff like that, but when he's in the game, good things happen all the time. There's that safety tandem with Bowman and Bowen. Watch and see. They're going to be the real deal. And I still think that at the corner position, you look at Gentry Williams, he's gotten considerably better from year 1 to year 2. And if he has that kind of improvement from year 2 to year 3, plus some of the younger guys that they've got, I think that they
now,
have.
Are you saying total or scoring?
I think in both they're going to be right up there because
here's why I'm hesitant.
Brent Venables, everywhere he's been, they've done this.
Yeah, here's why I'm a little hesitant on like number. I think y'all be very good. Y'all were 77th in the nation in total defense last year, and let's go to scoring. That would be one of the biggest increases ever.
But the thing is, right, and I agree with you. I think a lot of it was that second half of the year when you got a lot of guys nicked up, they didn't have this much. The depth pieces is where I think it's because when they had guys like Stutzman went down, Gentry Williams went down. You had some of their key pieces, and then particularly on that D line, they just weren't. You're not deep enough to lose pieces there. Right. And in the secondary too. But since then they've gotten deeper. And so it's, to me, I just think that Venable's defenses, they've always talked about how complex they are. And a lot of it was learning that. But before the Texas game, when they got a bunch of guys hurt and they got guys hurt in that game. And then after that, but I mean, they had the number 1 red zone defense in the country. And now that dropped off. They ended up giving up 35 plus points in the last 5 games of the year. So that knocked down a lot of those kind of rankings and stuff. But I think that you should see major improvement. I definitely believe that they can do that. And when you added a guy like Dominic Williams, and then you said it last night yourself, Jaden Jackson and Stoney, I think it's going to be huge there on the D line.
My biggest wonder for Oklahoma's defense, right, is the edge. Because that's an area where y'all are 86th in the nation in terms of sacks. That's somewhere where that has to take a step forward.
Sure. Yeah. They weren't getting pressure. They weren't getting pressure anywhere, really. I mean, they got more of it. But here's the thing. Sacks, I don't really care so much about sacks as much as I care about pressures. And they were really good at pressures. They didn't get home a lot. But there were 2 teams that didn't max protect the entire game. It was Texas and I want to say maybe Arizona at the end of the year, but everybody else was in max protect the entire season. And so when you're in max protect, you're not going to get home all the time, but you could still put pressure on the quarterback. I mean, it's not necessarily about getting home, but if you pressure them, though, they're not going to make plays plays either. And I think that sacks are important, but if they weren't getting any pressures, I would completely agree, but I don't think that that's the case. And I think, again, they're deeper in that area, and you got guys on the edges that should make, PJ Adebawari, he makes that big step from year 1 to year 2. We're talking about a top 5 end from the year before class. So, a 5-star guy, if it clicks for him, it's going to be on. So again, and they had to get stronger, man. We still, nobody seems to remember that Lincoln Riley's teams are soft, man. It's not just the bad defense. It's they had their strength in the last 2 years had to come up. Smitty's done a great job with that. I think that that's a big part of it. They have to prove all this on the field, but Venable's track record says year 3 they will.
Yeah,
that's a true point, though. I mean, at the end of the day, that is based on his track record. That does end up being the case with Venables. And I mean, it is interesting because I did just see that comment regarding that Texas game. And that's where, for me, when I was watching that game with Oklahoma's defense, that's where I'm like, oh my God, this defense.
They got pieces.
Why what I kept saying after that game, I kept thinking in my mind, I'm going, oh damn, Oklahoma is going to be in the playoffs. But the consistency obviously was the issue of what they ran into, and they dropped games they shouldn't have dropped. So, which is a bummer because I was so stoked after seeing them beat Texas, man. And I'm like, dude, that defense is, I kept looking, I'm like, these guys hit, they're aggressive, the play calls were phenomenal. I mean, it was a great game in general, but for them to match up and they didn't get nearly the publicity from a hype standpoint that other teams had gotten defensively throughout the year. It jumped off the screen immediately as I was watching that game. And I'm just like, man, what, Oklahoma has something here. And obviously, through the season, there's just some inconsistencies, but if year 3 puts it together, right. And we've heard about their, what is it? The new D coordinator. He's very he's similarities basically. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was actually, from the time he was a student at Clemson, he was there under Brent Venables. He was his right-hand man. So that's where you end up. He knows exactly what needs to be called at that. I think that the thing, if I believe that there's something that BV needed to do, it was do better at being a CEO. And even because most people, you don't look at this if you're not, this is kind of, to me, you look at the offense and you say, okay, they were top 5 in the nation, top 5 scoring defense or scoring offense. They were a top 5 yardage offense, but the losses that they had, it was uneven play calling, weird stuff that was going on with the way that, because Jeff Lebby, I love Jeff to death and he's an OU guy, but it almost seemed like he forgot what his goal was at times, and people talk about the jet sweep all the time, which never had a vertical element to it. So everybody knew it was coming. Right. But the truth is, the Kansas game, for instance, Jason Bean threw twice as many passes as Dylan Gabriel did in that game. And they lose, on the end of, they were one play away from winning that one too. But in the end, what's up with that? It was just weird play calling when they, it almost happened in the SMU game. They got out ahead, and then all of a sudden it just got real weird. I was at the Cincinnati game, weird play calling. And it just seemed like he didn't really have a goal all the time. Now, he called the Red River game beautifully. It was great, but it was really uneven. To me, the coordinator stuff, that's kind of overblown because you've got Seth coming back. He was already an analyst. Seth Luttrell, and they run very similar offenses, but Seth has a longer track record of being a great coordinator. With Zach Alley, he left Clemson, goes to Boise, then he gets hired his first coordinator job was with one of the Bowdens there at Louisiana Monroe, right? And then he was there with at Jacksonville State last year, and they had a top 15 defense in the country. He knows what he needs to run. So Venables can actually focus on some of the things that the little stuff, like, somebody should have been in Lebby's ear. Stop calling a jet sweep. Please do not run that again. Or, why are we not running the football more? There's certain things that you want to hear. You don't need him to call offense for you, but you need to tell him, hey, this is the game plan and I want you to stick to it. Be the CEO that you need to be. And I think that's as big of as anything. I trust in what they're doing defensively. I trust their recruiting. Their coaches are great. I just think that there's certain little things that you needed to see, and that sometimes Coach Venables wasn't, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, he wasn't assertive enough saying, hey, this is my football team. I want this to go on. You know what I mean? Or, we need to stick with this game plan. And I think that's his next step, right? That's his next step. So we'll see kind of what happens, but I'm excited about it,
Oh, for sure. Adam with the $20 saying, what traits do you believe make a defensive coordinator great? The ability to anticipate and adjust and maximize the talent? I think all of those. Coach Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what he just said, every coach in college football better have that. Every coach in high school football better have that, right? To be successful at the highest level. But if you're looking for that one thing that makes other defensive coordinators, to me, the guys that I had problems going against, it was always the defensive coordinators who really had the pulse of their squad. What I mean by pulse is kids that really would tear up on a speech you give, kids that had enough respect for you to they don't question what you say. The kids that love their coach and want to play for their coach, man, is just that. That can't be understated, man. I think Jake could probably speak to the defense more than me. When you love your coordinator and your coordinator, your coach really has your back, hey, man, listen, nothing will stop that. So, and you don't see that with every coach. You don't see the coach high-fiving every player. You may high-five the star, the kid that you closest to. The guys, like when Kirby was at Bama, this guy would go over and chest bump the whole damn defense. Like they loved Kirby, man. They loved him like a father. Those kids will run through a brick wall, will do what you tell them without questioning them. Those defensive relationships that you have with your coordinator outside of football is really what make the bond better.
And then Adam doubling up with the $10, and I'll pass this one to Jake. What is preferable for a defense, a great scheme with good talent or an average or less effective scheme with great talent?
Man, that's kind of a tough one because, you can use talent in an average scheme to make up for a bad scheme. And in a great scheme, you can use the scheme to make up for not for like an average, like a, semi-average talent. So it's hard, man. Like, I think in the end of the day, Boomer 129 coming in, man. I love it. I see the comment, Boomer. Yeah, baby. I hope you guys all like that stash. But here's the thing, I think what's interesting, going back to the question prior, even with what Coach Sean said, that's a really key aspect. Is you have a coordinator, obviously. Every one of those, what you listed, Adam, prior, was every one of those aspects are very important. You also need to have the ability to react correctly, but also anticipate correctly, right? And in that anticipation is really coming down to how you scheme your defense, that it is flexible enough to adjust without putting guys in positions that are not, I guess, outside of their skill set, right? So, and this is a concept I think a lot of people forget is you recruit for talent, but you also recruit for the type of scheme you're running, right? Womack says it best. He likes to go he's not getting away from big, what defense Alabama has always been, but he wants long and rangy. Why is that? Because you're going to cover way more ground. There's like a cornerback. Cornerback's a great example. These guys are going after cornerbacks who are bigger corners, right? Why is that? And Coach Carl last night, if you weren't on, if you didn't check us out in the evening last night on Coach Sean's channel, it was a good segment over there. We got into some really good topics, but Coach Carl runs that 4-2-5, 3-4 nickel, 4-2-5 defense where he coaches high school in Alabama. He's talking about that defense and utilizing, basically the speed in space, right? But that speed comes from more so not necessarily this quick twitchy speed that you see in track and field, but more of the speed to be able to cover space. And that's where that long and rangy comes from a defensive back. And even honestly at your defensive ends too, with your edge, whether it's your wolf, your bandit being obviously a larger guy, but definitely your wolf, that length is a big deal, man, to really seal that edge. So, and the physicality too. I mean, you know, Anthony, you bring that up. I do think in the end of the day, it looks at these aspects and you say, hey, we got to make sure that we have the ability to anticipate, adjust, and put guys in the right position that they understand and still stay within our basic foundation of our defense in order to compete with an offense. And we have the right things in place that we've taught these guys from a concept standpoint that we can implement and quickly change or quickly put into place to not get so far behind, right? And it's hard when, you know, I know that's a lot that I just put out there, but to think of it like that, it very much is a match of making sure your coaches are exactly what you need to communicate, especially from a coordinator aspect, right? Especially on defense, I think specifically, because I think in offense you can adjust a little easier. I think defense, your coaches really have to be in touch with what you're doing, because as a D coordinator, you cannot just, you can't just go position to position to position. Now some do, like Washington with Steve Belichick. He doesn't coach a specific position. He oversees everything. So they break it down differently. He doesn't coach like linebackers. He is bouncing. And he does it in a way where it's like an overall management aspect where he's paying attention. But I think the next part of that with Womack, going back to him in kind of what you want in a coach, is you do have to have a guy who has the demeanor, has the energy, has the mindset that really gets guys excited to play. There's something about playing for a guy. You know, there's one thing where you go and you play for a guy where you're like, all right, I'm going to go out there, do my best. There's another thing where you want to make your coach proud. Like there's this feeling of saying, okay, I you know, it's like almost like a really good father figure. If you've ever had a coach like that, or a teacher like that, or even a boss like that, or maybe your dad was like that, but you're like, man, I just want to make him, I want to make him proud. And it gives you a whole nother aspect to your game, right? You're playing with almost a different type of passion. And then also to that, like obviously the mixture and the camaraderie and the brotherhood you form with your teammates. So I think it's a big part of it all. You know what I'm saying? And when it comes down to it, I hope that also explains the second question too. Like I said, it's long-winded. And I know we have some kick-ass topics that we do need to get into. That's for sure, especially with the recruiting stuff, because there's a lot of recruiting stuff out right now.
Yep. Let me hit these donations and then we will go to these other topics. And I'm actually going to cut a video. So we'll talk about the Ty Haywood one. Not super in depth because we'll cut a video on it, right? And that'll be, we don't want it to be too long. But Brandon Wilkins with $4.99 saying his defense has had an offense ran by Watson and Lawrence. OU doesn't have that yet. Whenever, you know, we first started talking about this, that's something Jason and I talked about, was that he has had generational quarterbacks whenever they won at Clemson. I understand the defenses were good. That Bama Clemson game was an offensive win, right? Like Bama scored with like a minute left, and then Deshaun Watson went down there and scored, right? Like that was a high scoring game. Great defense, not minimizing that. What I will tell you, Brandon, is that OU doesn't have a problem with offensive talent. Right, Oklahoma is going to have great offensive talent, and it's. I'm not worried about OU offensively in the slightest. They're going to be able to put an offense together that's going to be able to win games. They did that last season. They will do that this season. That will continue. Neilio with the $5.
25 freaking years. They always have an offense that's going to be fine. It's Neilio not says the problem has always been the last 15 years has been more defensively. Yeah, I'm not worried about offense.
Yep, Neilio with the $5 saying good and happy Friday to you all. Hey, Jason. Happy you're here, Neilio. Yeah, I agree, Jason. Even though, like, you and I have talked about this, right? Because whenever Brent Venables first got hired, I was like, oh, those Clemson teams, great defenses, but they had not good quarterbacks. They had generational quarterbacks back to back, which is something that a lot of people don't have. But at the end of the day, they still had fantastic defenses, some of the top defenses in all of college football that were hard to beat. And Oklahoma isn't a team that has struggled putting offenses together. So I think they're going to be just fine there, right? Yeah, 100% Ryan. They have been quarterback you, and I don't have to tell y'all how high I am on Jackson Arnold.
Oh, yeah, man.
I think he's incredible. And I have a video coming out later today, and I talk about if you are someone who's saying, oh, I watched Jackson Arnold against Arizona. I know there's part of the crowd that say bowl games don't matter. I disagree with that. Right. I have the executive director of bowl season come on my channel every single year. Right. Like the guy that runs bowl games for college football comes on my channel and we talk about it. So I disagree with the notion that bowl games don't matter. Right. Like it mattered to Georgia last year. It mattered to Alabama the year before whenever Bryce and Will came back and played in that game. It all depends on what you're trying to cultivate. That being said, if you're someone who's saying, oh, well, just because Arnold threw some interceptions in a bowl game, he's not going to be good, that's disingenuous. Name me a true freshman quarterback that hasn't made true freshman mistakes against and this is the other thing we don't talk about, gentlemen, a really good Arizona team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He also had almost 400 passing yards and a couple of touchdowns, too.
Exactly. Yeah. So that bowl performance for Jackson Arnold is way overblown to me. I don't understand a lot of the crowd that's like, oh, well, he did fine in that bowl game. He was a true freshman who had true freshman moments. Once again, riddle me a quarterback that hasn't had true freshman moments. And I'm going to show you a number 1 overall draft pick, right? Like there's only a handful of guys ever who haven't had, and 2, Arizona's really freaking good.
They are.
Right, they were a really freaking good team. Jackson Arnold is going to light it up.
And honestly, had it not been for that fumble that he had, they were about to go up they were up 10 at that point. They were about to go up by 17 in that game, despite the 3 turnovers that he already had.
Yes. So I don't worry. Who is that? Brandon. I don't worry about them. Jackson Arnold is a very, 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 very talented guy. Dylan Gabriel's talented. Jackson Arnold has a much higher ceiling. And I talk about that in my video. But I want to go ahead and we're going to cut a video. So let me make sure I get this time. We're
cutting a video.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Let's go.
So we're here talking about one of the biggest recruiting battles in all of high school football, certainly one where some of the top colleges in the nation are all after, one of the most coveted, one of the top offensive line prospects there is. Ty Haywood out of Denton Ryan High School in Denton, Texas, where I'm currently sitting. Gentlemen, he is the number 11 player in the nation, the number 2 offensive tackle in the nation, and the number 4 in Texas. He stands 6'5", 285 pounds, and all of this comes your way by way of the 24/7 Sports Composite. If we're talking about Ty Haywood, I think there's 2 teams we focus in on. That's Oklahoma, who has the pre-existing relationship with him, the long-standing relationship, and Bill Bedenbaugh. Bill Bedenbaugh being one of, if not the best offensive line coach in the nation. I have let it be known I think he's the number 1 offensive line coach in the nation. If you disagree, I don't know how in the world you would put him outside the top 5. I just don't, right? Like, that guy is so good. You look at the guys he sends to the NFL, you look at their contracts, it happens time after time after time. But then there's Bama, who has been creeping into this battle. And what's interesting, gentlemen, is that Preston PG, one of the friends of the show, was in here earlier watching, texted me a few months ago and said, hey, this is a little scary because Bama's doing Bama things behind the scenes. Bama is really starting to get some ground made up on these offensive linemen, and they're turning heads, and it's all happening behind the scenes. Well, now we have seen, per some of the national recruiting guys, I believe Steve Wiltfong was one of them, is talking about, hey, Bama's catching up. Bama's making up ground when it comes to Ty Haywood, but what is going to prevail? How is this going to work? Coach Cap, great offensive line coach, shares a lot of the same principalities as a Bill Bedenbaugh. And I love the blocking scheme that Kalen DeBoer employs within his offense. I don't know that you're going to see a team pin and pull as much as Kalen DeBoer offense's pin and pull. You're going to have your offensive linemen in space making plays. This is going to be a heavyweight battle for one of the top prospects in the nation. Jason, resident Oklahoma fan, talk to me about this battle. What are you thinking?
I would like to be more sure that he was going to Oklahoma, but the relationships, we talked about it a little earlier about how important it is in recruiting, even in the NIL era. And I think that Oklahoma's done a very good job there. He goes to, obviously a school down in Denton. There's other Sooners on the program that are helping with that. He's talked a lot about his relationship with Coach Biedenbaugh. He's talked a lot about his relationship with Coach Venables. I think they have a good shot at this. What I would also say, though, is that you've got a coach and a program, that came from a year ago having the Joe Moore offensive line, at Washington. So this isn't, and it's freaking Alabama. It is what it is. You have to expect that this is going to be a fight down to the end. I'm looking at his official visits. Obviously, he's there right now camping at Alabama. So that's a big deal. But again, I think that it comes down to what happens at the end of this. I don't think I think obviously, NIL is going to have a piece of it, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think that either one of these programs are going to let it be about the money. So what does it become about? It becomes about the relationship. So, not knowing a ton about Coach DeBoer and his program, my guess is that he does pretty well with relationships because he was at Washington. You're not paying out the way that some of these other programs will. Again, I think when you look at the track record for Coach Biedenbaugh, he is the best offensive line coach in the country. He's got 11 offensive tackles in the NFL playing today, right now. 11. He's back-to-back years with an offensive lineman going in the first round. The proof is in the pudding. Now, he hasn't recruited 5 stars great at Oklahoma, but I don't know how I think that he identifies the right guys anyway. So it is what it is. And look, I like Oklahoma's chances, but I really wish it was somebody else that they were going against than Bama, because that's the toughest program to recruit against.
Well, before I pass to Coach Sean, I think I echo those. I wish it was someone else Bama was trying to lift him away from other than Coach Bill Biedenbaugh in Oklahoma. And ladies and gentlemen, Oklahoma under Brent Venables has maintained top 10 recruiting classes again and again and again, and they look to be barreling towards yet another top 10 recruiting class. Brent Venables can recruit his tail off. Coach Sean, talk to me about Ty Haywood.
First of all, shout out to Marquita, my neighbor, Moon Rocker, Antoine, Kimberly, Coach Smook himself, who fed him his face last night and didn't call me. Shout out to Janet, shout out to Lynn, and shout out to Coach Carl. Shout out to all my brothers from the AAA. Much love and respect to you for sure, for sure. But as far as this young man, I just recently watched tape on this young man, and I love this kid because he got long arms. From what I see, good feet. He play high at times, which is nothing abnormal for a high school lineman. Really, really good feet. Doesn't overextend a lot. Pass set is strong. You can tell he's been really, really coached well because he doesn't overextend a lot. That was Caden's problem when he came to Alabama. He would overextend a lot and try to use his athletic ability. When in college, you're just not going to be able to do that a lot. It's cool in high school, but in college, those athletes you're going against on the other side of the field are just as athletic as you, if not more athletic. But I love this kid because he fits what Coach DeBoer likes to do. Smaller, quicker lineman. Doesn't necessarily need to be no 330-pound guy. They'll probably get him up to about 315. Nimble, agile. Kid that look like he could play tight end, if you ask me. Yeah. Long arms. That's what I like. Long torso, long arms. This kid is needed at Alabama. It's not many times where we need linemen, right? We want you, and I think you'll be great. But this kid is needed at Alabama with the subsidy at right tackle. I think Wilkin-Form is doing well. I think Elijah Pritch is doing well. They'll battle for that. Miles McVay. We have some very good young linemen. But this kid is a need. We need tackles at Alabama. We need them. And I do believe that the coaching staff will put all their eggs in a basket on this kid. And we'll see what happens. But as far as his talent is on the film. The film does not lie. I love what I see from this kid. And it's going to be a fight with Oklahoma. It's going to be a fight with him. But this is a kid that Alabama can preach. Need, not want.
Yeah, and need is always big. Though I can imagine, and Jason, you can attest to this, Oklahoma will be preaching need as well. Oklahoma also, before I pass it to you, Jake, has been very successful, as has Bama in the Denton region. But when you look, they have got Bowen, who's from the Denton region. They have got Jackson Arnold, who's from the Denton region.
Oh, man, too.
they have, yeah, both of them. They have been very successful in this Denton region. Jake, to you.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting battle. I do think it does favor Alabama. And my reasoning for that is Oklahoma, from a development standpoint with Venable, I mean, it is phenomenal. You've seen what he's done. He's very impressive. And give it to Venable. He comes from like Mike Leach. I don't think a lot of people realize he comes from Mike Leach. So there's a lot of skill set learned from like that air raid offense. But also now we look back and we look to the future and look to the present, and that's with Kalen DeBoer and his offense, right? And how does he fit and be able to demonstrate his overall abilities without having to change as much with Ty Haywood, right? And I think the big thing is that's where he fits really, really well, offensive, from a scheme wise, from what they do on the offensive line. And then also, I think in general, you look at what Coach Cap brings to the table. He also has time and experience. Maybe does not get the same notoriety and prestige as Beanbo, right? But still, with his background, everything that he's done from every school he's been at has been very phenomenal, especially with the offensive line. I have to give Coach Cap a lot of credit, right? But we also look at, from Haywood's standpoint, is this Alabama, and he says it's been his dream school since he's a kid. Okay, like he's a huge fan of Alabama. It's been where he's watched. It's been what he's wanted to do or go to, and it is hard from a recruiting aspect. And I can go back in there and consider a little bit back in my day, right, of recruiting. When you get the opportunity to go to your dream school, it's hard to say no, and that it plays a huge role in your decision. I think that's going to end up being the case. I think the relationship aspect too, though, I just think there's so much energy at Alabama. I think the kid in general feels that. You obviously see the heavy recruiting coming in with Roach, with DeBoer, with Cap, and just their ability. I mean, probably other coaches as well, with their ability to really tell this kid, like, hey man, we're making you a priority. We know you're going to do well. This is a place you need to come. This is a place you need to be. We can continue to develop you. We can show, obviously, what you can do from your athletic ability, but even make you better. And the next aspect of that, too, is he is paying attention to what Washington's offensive line did last 2 years in general, especially last year. Granted, it's a different coach, but it's still on their same scheme, And so I think that's going to end up playing a big role. I do think in the end, like, that's probably a direction I would feel best. It's going to be tight, don't get me wrong, but I would put more of that percentage, and my crystal ball would be to Alabama, right? I'll put it that way. And I will say this too, from a development standpoint, and I heard this the other day on Pat McAfee's show, right? They did a kind of a clip of like Tom Brady talking about Jordan Love behind Aaron Rodgers and how important it is for quarterbacks. And honestly, this applies to every position. How important it is truly to learn and take some time to develop. Like, there's so many kids who talk about, like, well, I'm making the consideration for playing time. That is the last thing you should consider a school or consider going anywhere to play. You should go somewhere to learn.
That's stupid.
It is, man. And there's so many kids who think about that because their end goal is the NFL, is to be that as quickly as I can get there, right? Like, there seems to be that push, but there's something to be said about what you can do. Like, you can get to the NFL. That's awesome. You can get drafted, but what if you just end up being a bust? Because that's what will happen if you do not focus and develop yourself. I think there's something you said at Alabama where you look at the time frame. Granted, Kane Proctor, some other guys really jumped in there as a true freshman, and they were able to make moves. And if you have that skill set, good for you. You will get to play. But if you have time to develop too, that there's a huge benefit to that. Watch the guys who do it successfully in front of you. Learn from other people's knowledge. I love to say it like that. Learn from other people's experiences and knowledge. You can excel your path a lot faster. So that's kind of my take on that. I think, don't get me wrong, Oklahoma, phenomenal as far as what they can do with offensive linemen. It's not like a bad play for him, but I do think just from an overall standpoint of what you've seen, read in different articles, whether it's 247, Bama Online, Rivals, and even like, Coach Smook, I saw you in here. He has some really good recruiting knowledge in there with his connections too. So make sure you check him out over at Coach Smook Network. I do think that the direction he is going is Alabama. And I think the official visit is really going to solidify that. Once that's in, I think it kind of puts everything in place. So
going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, the one thing I would combat with that is that Oklahoma gets an official visit after Bama. So
it's true.
You only have like one other official visit, and it's Florida State. I'm not for nothing. I'm not too worried about Florida State there. Oklahoma gets to talk to him though last, as far as like getting them there and at the right time. Now, again, does it matter? I don't know. I think it does matter to some extent, and I'm not going to crystal ball anything, because I would tell you that right now, relationship wise, if you do believe it is a relationship wise, he said it's going to come down to relationships right in that last On 3 article. And he's talking about that he's built a great relationship with Coach Bedenbaugh and Venable. So to me, I do feel like it's definitely up in the air. And I think that Alabama's going to do a great job there, but I don't know that, I would have a hard time saying that I believe that it's for sure going to go one way or the other, because I just feel like these are both staffs that are doing a good job with relationship recruiting anyway. So to me, I like where Oklahoma is. I would tell you, the one thing is that Coach Bedenbaugh is more straightforward, and he's not gonna. He doesn't. I think the reason he doesn't get a lot of these guys that are 5 stars is because he doesn't blow any sunshine about, I'm going to give you a starting position as a freshman, because you got to earn it. You're going to have to earn it, and if you're good enough to play, when you're good enough to play, that's great. The other thing is that I also think there's something that may have a lot to do with it. Fasusi is still firmly in Oklahoma's camp as well with it. And you already got a commitment from Ryan Foji, who's shooting up the recruiting ranks. He was about 400 at the time. You should watch his film too, Coach Sean. Unreal. Another great left tackle guy. So he's shot up the ranks. He's in the top 100 of a couple of them now. And he was at like 400 when they got him to commit. So if the playing time is a worry, or because of the fact of who they're recruiting, maybe he doesn't show up, I could see that kind of happening. But I do feel like you got to look at it as if you have an advantage with Oklahoma, not just because of being close to home, it's got to be Bedenbaugh because of how many guys he has in the league right now, proving that he can coach them up and develop them. So.
Well, hop down to the comments. Let us know. Do you think it's Alabama? Do you think it's Oklahoma? Who wins the battle for Ty Haywood? This is one we're going to be watching. This is one that I think all of college football will be watching closely. Obviously, Texas is a team that is still chipping away. He's talked about Kyle Flood and him are very, very close. Kyle Flood, fantastic recruiter. So this is a battle we're going to have to sit back and watch. But as of now, if I had to guess, looks to be a 2-team race. Alabama, Oklahoma. Once again, hop down to the comments. Let us know what you're thinking there. All right. We're good. So last topic I wanted to talk about, guys, and we can kind of run through this really quickly, is will Alabama get a big flip for Keelan Russell? Right? Keelan Russell, Duncanville's quarterback.
Stud.
Really talented. Can Alabama flip him? Coach Sean, I'll start with you.
I don't know, man. To be realistic, I don't know. This is where I would, if we were on the panel, I would resort to Coach Smook, with him and what he knows about these things. I really don't know. I'm not sure. I've seen positive feedback for Alabama. I've seen some negative feedback, not negative, but not in our favor. Some feedback. So I don't really know. I think Alabama is doing what Alabama does. We're taking our shot. We're putting that script A out there. This is where you can play. This is who you can play for. This is the offense that can really, really extenuate your gifts. I think he fits what we do. I think he fits the kind of quarterback that can absolutely be dangerous in a Kalen DeBoer offense, running and throwing. I just don't really know, man. I don't know our chances right now. I like I said, I've seen feedback on both sides of the fence for him, good and positive and negative. If I had to assume of the basic knowledge of what I have of this, I don't think he's coming to Alabama. I just don't. If we do, absolutely outstanding, right? That's a hell of a pickup, a hell of a job for that staff. But I think it's going to be a uphill battle for Alabama and that young man. And I just don't know, guys. I just don't know at this moment.
Jake, what are you thinking?
I mean, Coach Sean just made some good points, and I saw Lynn. Appreciate your comment in here, man. Like it will be interesting to see how we play this season. I think that's going to play a lot of impact on recruiting. Is how well Alabama does, right? And specifically with Keelan Russell, I do think though it's going to come down with him. Again, we get into it, and you can honestly say this with any kid and anywhere they're going. It comes down to relationships and how they feel. At least that's how it should be. That's what you should consider when you're going through this recruiting process. Is truly like you should ask yourself the question: if my career ended, right? If I go there and I'm playing and I have a career-ending injury, do I still love being there? You're still going to be part of the team. You won't be on the field. You won't be achieving the dreams, but do you love the guys you're around? And do you feel supported enough that, in the end of the day, you're going to walk out of there with like a quality education and a quality experience of college? And that's a big question. Like, who's going to take care of you? Because I think a lot of guys don't, obviously you don't go in there thinking you're going to get hurt, but there's a lot of stuff that happens as far as you just don't necessarily think about, right? That could play into a point of your decision-making process and help you maybe clarify some things. So I do think with Keelan Russell, it's going to be interesting because his visit is now, right? Like it's now, it's the first visit. He has some other ones as well that are hardcore recruiters. I think Oregon's one of them. And I think I also saw that he's going to check out Florida. Again, I've said this about Florida. Like I don't know what it is, but recruits are starting to pay attention to something's going on there. That's in the positive, right?
You want to play quick though. You wouldn't probably want to.
No.
I don't know.
If he wants to play quick, I don't know. As much as I love Russell, Bama's got 4 quarterbacks right now.
I know.
Right? They got Ty Simpson, who's a former 5-star, Dylan Lonergan, who looks really, really like he's a promising prospect. And now they all get to develop under Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, Brian Ellis. Once again, Brian Ellis, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's one of the hidden gems in all of college football. He set records at Western Kentucky with Bailey Zappi, and now he's at Alabama as the tight ends coach. Coach Shepard was the passing game coordinator at Washington, now Alabama's wide receiver coach.
That's a good coach right there, too.
Yes. Yeah. So you look, as much as I want Russell, that's the only question I have. And then on top of that, you have Austin Mack, who I understand during A-Day didn't have 2 good throws that a lot of people are holding him back with. Once again, same argument I kind of gave for Jackson Arnold. Show me a young quarterback that hasn't made bad throws, and I'm going to show you a first-round draft pick, and more than likely a number 1 draft pick. It is what it is. And the thing with Austin Mack is he just turned 18. He reclassified a whole year out of high school. And not only that, a year and a half, right? He early enrolled at Washington when he should have been still in his junior year of high school. He's still very young. So that's going to be very interesting. Jason, talk to me about Keelan Russell.
Man, he's a stud. And my thought on this is that I guess I could see we talked about it in the green room earlier. I guess I could see him staying at home and the money wise. I mean, SMU, they're not even worried about not getting paid to be in the ACC. My thought is though, if you really want to get to the NFL and that you need to go play for Kalen DeBoer.
I mean, dude, you put real quick, Jason. I just want to jump in. I go back to what just Brady just said about Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. Brady just talked about the development aspect and how great it was for Jordan Love to sit behind Aaron Rodgers. That's why he's having the success. He's saying he had the same thing, right? Behind Drew Bledsoe. And there's a number of quarterbacks you can list. You have to learn. You have to go in there. Don't expect to go in there and play. Go compete for sure. But man, look what DeBoer did with Penix.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. I mean, Penix, even after the injuries and everything else, and I mean all this stuff you couldn't deny what he did last year and the year before. I mean, he throw it all over the yard and look at what the people that bring up the receiver stuff. Well, they helped develop them too. Now there were studs and straight up, but Michael Penix, he's had the last 2 years historical what he did the last 2 years at Washington. So to me, you have to look at that. I mean, I don't know. I like SMU's coach. I think again, money wise, they're good. And if he wants to stay at home, I can understand what that's about, right? I can definitely understand it. But if you want the best competition and you want a coach that can develop quarterbacks, I mean, again, Kalen DeBoer's lost 13 freaking games in however many years he's been doing this. Won a couple of natties, played for a national championship, in his second year as a head coach.
Yeah,
at the Division I level, anyway. Unbelievable, So to me, I don't know. You definitely have to go compete, and I wouldn't care about how many guys are in front. I mean, you look at Oklahoma; they got guys that are a couple of, even with Jackson Arnold there being a 5-star firmly implanted. You look at Michael Hawkins. You look at, you've got Kevin Sperry coming next year. In this class, these are guys that are, you're gonna have to be the guy to get on the field. So to me, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. And if he doesn't want to go there because of competition, you don't want him anyway.
That's true. I mean,
that's a fair point. And we have.
Can I say this, Ty? Can I say
100%,
this real quick?
Coach?
I think. Listen, we can all talk about where we think he'll go, what fits him. At the end of the day, this season is going to be imperative. What Alabama does on the field and how Jalen Milroe looks. If Alabama just go be Alabama, we're not going to have to do much to get him. I promise you that. I promise. If Jalen go out and the coaches put him in a position to where he can look like Jalen Milroe for real and do big things and the team do well. And that goes for Oklahoma as well. If you go out and you play well and you put on display an impressive offense, that's going to speak volumes in this day and age with this college football playoff. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of opportunities to be seen at Oklahoma, at Alabama. It's going to be imperative that the offense play well, or whatever position it is that you're being recruited for. If you go out, you play well, you go on national TV, and you let the world know that we're still here. Oh, and in Oklahoma's case, we're here. The recruits are going to come. These programs don't have to do much, man. The play on the field, I can promise you, will be one of the biggest factors.
Yeah.
Love that. And guys, one topic that I do want to get into, because Nath Bone has been asking since the beginning of the stream, and he is still here. So Nath, of course, we're going to dive into this topic for you. Coach Sean, I want to start with you. We talked last night on your channel about the expansion of the NIL, the expansion of revenue sharing, all this. What does that mean for walk-ons in college football? What does that mean for rosters?
Man, listen, let me say this as far as walk-ons and one thing that hadn't changed since I played, is the walk-on experience. I don't think people really understand that when you're a walk-on, man, it's so much you have to do in college football. Jake, you know this. The walk-on guys, I used to have so much respect for those guys, man, because, man, they used to go through hell, bro. They used to go through hell. And remember this, that a lot of people don't really know. if I remember, they're called Austin. I think it was Austin Payments. What Austin? If you could probably Google it if it's still around. I remember in my day, Austin Payments was like these. It was sort of like financial stipends that they paid the walk-ons, like 20 grand. It was like maybe $6,000 or something like that a year, and 20 something
for like
grand.
a preferred walk-on deal or something like that.
Yeah. So remember, the walk-ons are costing too. So in this revenue sharing age, if you can exit that out, that's still saving you money. Walk-ons cost money as well. It's about roster management when you're talking about that stuff. You still got to pay travel expenses. You still got to pay for equipment. You still got to pay money for walk-ons as well. It's about revenue, man. And yes, I do think that the walk-on position is in jeopardy. And that just will suck to me. I just don't like that. It'll suck to me because, man, some of those kids could play at lower levels of football, right? And to have to go this route to subside for some extra money to give to a revenue share in a revenue sport, it just sort of sucks, man. And it's kind of like the business is rolling over the little man. But yeah, I don't think people realize that the walk-ons count, especially the ones who are good. These kids get these. I'm not even sure if Austin Payments are still around. They was when I played. The walk-ons did get a little stipend here and there. I'm sure it's more nowadays. But yeah, I don't really like that. But again, it just goes to show you what I've been preaching, man. A lot of people get mad about it, but it's the truth, man. The truth is in the details. It's about money. You can't excoriate these kids when look at what's going on, guys. They're actually having talks about doing away with the kids who just love the university. They just want to come there and play, right?
Yeah.
It's about money. This is why I don't get mad at these kids when you're talking about this, because all these adults are about money. Every decision is being made.
Decision that's been made has been by the adults too.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm not going to excoriate the kids in the room when everything around them is being made off a profit, off about some money. It's like what Jake said. The love of the game is still there, but the love is based off a monetary number now. And I go back to this every time. I've said it 100 times. This will be 101. Say what you want to say. USC is a staple on the West Coast. Was a staple, is a staple. They're in the Big Ten now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jake?
Yeah, I'll jump in this real quick because I see we got another question or the super chat. Appreciate you, Nilo. So it's interesting, right? Because so if we keep the scholarship aspect of it, I do believe we need to keep the walk-on aspect. I mean, that's a big deal. So because I know there's talk like right around the aspect of if we have a percentage, like why are we paying? Shouldn't these kids like be doing their own thing with the scholarships? We take away the scholarships and instead do a payment system, right? So which is kind of interesting. That's a whole nother subject. But if we do keep the scholarship aspect, I do believe there should be the walk-on opportunity. And you're right, Coach Sean, what it comes down to is roster management, but at the same time, like these guys get an opportunity, preferred walk-ons, right? That's what they're called, preferred walk-ons, but they get an opportunity to come out there and work hard. And there's something to be said about these guys who step in the roles. We see it all the time. I saw it last year with the University of Washington. Their kicker was a preferred walk-on. He ended up earning a scholarship. It was pretty cool the way they did it. And we've seen it with a number of programs. I saw it with a running back at Colorado. And Deion Sanders, who's seen that video, is a very special moment. I don't think you're going to see this necessarily go away. There's a number of coaches too in the NCAA, and I mean, with Coach Debo, right? Like he was a walk-on right over at Clemson, and so
Venables was a walk-on.
There are there's a number of coaches who have been walk-ons before, and I think they see the value in it. So I don't know if we'll necessarily see that go away. Here's where I do see it potentially going away. Because if you limit roster size to, let's say just a peer, or you drop even the roster size, right? Like you go similar to like an NFL roster size, which starts to get really almost dangerous as far as practice wise, because now you're really overplaying kids in practice, or you have to even figure out how to construct practice completely different. So will it be even as physical? Does that change the physicality of the game in general? Because that's a true question that has to be asked. But you look at that aspect, then we start to sit there and go, okay, so how do we what about these kids' opportunities? And I think the ideal roster size, right? And I've heard kind of Kalen DeBoer talk about this, because he's been at each level, right? From NAIA to some smaller Division I schools, to obviously, the Power 5 or Power 4 now. And his number, he said, was really like right in the 120s, which seems to be about average between 110 and 120, right? And so if you do it that way, and you take away the scholarships, and let's say you pay everyone like a straight stipend, then you have the NIL deals on the outside. That would be another option, I believe, where you could utilize kids who'd be considered walk-ons. But
the problem is that that's not where it's trending with this this house settlement.
Yeah, I know. And Jason, it looked like you had a few things on that. I don't know if you want to touch on.
Yeah, well, what I'm seeing on it, just what I'm seeing on it is that essentially what the house settlement is showing is that they're going to eliminate the amount of scholarships you can give out. So right now you can have 85 scholarship players on your roster.
Yeah,
they're going to eliminate that part, but part of it is also talking about that they will drop the number of players that you can have on your roster. So right now it's 120, right? You can have 120 guys. If you drop that to 85, and that's essentially ruins the walk-ons, that there will be no more walk-ons, because you can give scholarships to as many guys as you want to, right? But like Coach Venables was saying, and everybody's against it in the SEC, by the way.
Yeah, I know they are.
They're all against it. But Coach Venables said, "So you mean to tell me we're going to add more games, but we can have less players? More chance for injury, but we're going to have less players? Yeah. Then it makes zero sense." But the reason that it's going to happen, it's going to be a cost-cutting thing. This is all about money. And don't make this about players again, because of just what Coach Sean said. It's not about what's fair and what's right. They don't give a flying shit what is fair and what's right at any of these levels. What they care about is right there. It's all about money. And I think that you lose something very it's a fundamental thing about college football or college sports in general is the walk-on. You don't get
true. It's a fact.
Those guys they matter so much to teams. Texas A&M they're a weird little clan, but they are what they are. But that 12th man thing, unbelievable. That's such a cool thing,
It is, man. Well, real quick, I just want to touch on that you bring that up about the money aspect, because Ty, you probably heard this too. I last night when we all got done with the doubleheader shows, if you guys haven't watched them, go back and rewatch them. They were dope, on Ty's channel and Coach Sean's channel. And I listened to Josh Pate, right? And Pate brought up something, as he usually does, that's very intriguing and gets you right in the head. He goes, here's what we're running into is you have guys who are losing. They don't want to, from an administrative standpoint, and even from the coaching standpoint, because this coaching market with the amount of money that's being paid, look, it's a 12 million, 10 million, $5 million is a shit ton of money, people. It's a lot of money. $1 million to 10 million. How much more happy are you going to be? Okay, maybe a little. Maybe you can buy some more things. I don't know. Maybe you can have some generational wealth. That's cool. I get it. But truthfully, like, let's just say, here's what we're looking at. We're saying, and Pate brings this up. He goes, okay, at this aspect, you have guys who are living within your means, right? He brings up the girls crying on social media or TikTok saying, I don't have any money. I can't I can't survive. I don't know what to do. Well, when she has like a Mercedes Benz that she's having $800 car payments, her rent is $2,500 a month. She's spending constantly on Gucci bags or whatever the hell they are, right? Like, and all this stuff. So she's living outside of her means. So what does it come down to with we look from like the administrative standpoint, right? We look at the coaching standpoint. Wait a minute. So not necessarily, and I don't want to drag coaches into this because it's the market with the coaches, but more so from the administrative standpoint. So wait a minute. We don't want to take money from this area because you lose money and now you can't live within the means that you say is comfortable because you've been used to it for so long. When really the fundamentally right thing to do, the morally right thing to do would be, it's like almost even at companies, right? Everyone wants, you see this in retail a lot where they cut from the bottom, not necessarily the top, as far as a budget to create a better atmosphere for the employee working and grinding every single day out on the floor because they don't want to lose money from the top, right? And that's interesting because if you want to run it correctly and you want things to be happy and you want everyone to have success and everyone to build, everyone to come together, everyone to experience this wealth, you have to do it in a way where you're making people happy, and those people doing the majority of the work need to be happy. They need to be put in a position where they can go out and perform and know that they're being appreciated for their performance. So we take that to the bottom, which on the foundational level within college football is the players. It's the players, right? So where can we cut from these aspects, not other sports? That's not fair to do the other sports. But from a top standpoint, how do we say, okay, change the way you're living then? Change the way you're living within your means. And I really respect what Josh had to say about that. That made a hell of a point. Yeah, hell of a point.
I would agree with you. I was watching that too, and it's like, yeah, what are we talking about? That at what point are you going to shave some of the coaches or shave off of their salary? If you're going to do that, where you got less kids that can make it and be able to play, and especially with walk-ons, they're there for the love of the game anyway.
Yep.
They're not there expecting any money, but you need guys. And as they're gonna. Right now, they're at a 12-team playoff. They're about to go to a 14 anytime.
That's a fact. I was just going there. Jason.
They'll get it to 16 or more before very long, too. So I don't know how you can cut back to like 75 to 78 players on a roster or whatever they're talking about. I think it's silly to even consider this. And how do you not limit scholarships, but you're limiting the roster size? That doesn't even make sense. I mean, now all of a sudden you're going to drop the amount of guys that can be on the roster, but you're not limiting the amount of scholarships. So what does that even mean?
Let me say this, because I could do a whole show on just this topic here. And I feel, I have some affinity and rightfully so. I played at HBCU, right? Mm-hmm. One of your better HBCUs. So we wasn't poor like that. But my case and point is, I don't think the average fan really realized what go into playing college football, man. Lynn can speak to this. Jake can speak to this. Coach Smoot can speak to this. I don't think people understand the normal fan that's sitting at home on Saturday does not understand and see what these kids go through the week. When I tell you this shit, excuse me, Ty, I don't want to cuss on your channel. It's like Jake, you said the other night, it's like a full-time job.
Yeah.
Man, listen, and they put so much emphasis on it, it'll make you think school is second or third in some places. They put so much emphasis on it, man, threatening you with your scholarship all the time. It'll make you believe school is second, man. I'm telling you, I don't think people understand what these athletes have to do from a nutritional standpoint. Weightlifting, practice in the summer, coming back early. Only people at school is us and the band. Like, we out there just going, just hot 2 times a day. Like, I don't think people understand how much football consumes of your life when you're a college football player. It consumes you, bro. So when you see everybody getting paid, you see compliance officers, athletic directors, coaches, parking attendants, whoever the hell it is, you see everybody just getting these crazy, ridiculous salaries, and they tell you, well, you should be happy. You got your scholarship. Newsflash. And I'm going to tell you the truth. The truth is in the detail. And this go for Alabama A&M or University of Alabama. Your scholarship, when you're a kid that come from the neighborhood, your scholarship doesn't even really help you until you graduate. While you're in school, sure, it gets you a couple perks here and there, a couple free meals, a couple chicks here and there, you know, the normal college kid things. I'm talking about your life, your quality of life outside of being a student athlete. Your scholarship helps you when you graduate and you get that diploma. I mean, you get that degree. That's when it helps you, when your life starts. While you're in college, if your mama don't have it, now they got NIL, it's a little different. But when I was there, if you don't have a parent that can send you a couple of $100 a week, you might be effed up.
Yep.
You might be eating ramen noodles. If the cafeteria is closed, you might be effed up. So I don't think people understand from an aspect of what these kids, their value is much higher than people is acting like, right? And these these adults who understand the in and outs of college football are exploiting them. Why do you guys think the courts was like, nope, we don't want no parts of this? Nope, nope, nope. Don't try to put us in it. Guess why? Because for years, way before my time, people outside of the university has been making money off these kids' face with things that don't got a damn thing to do with football, silent auctions, golf tournaments, all these things that people have their tentacles in from boosters have been getting paid. Hey, Julio, why don't you come over here to my fishing tournament, man? But you know, come on, I got Julio Jones. Julio on the damn dime. School in trouble because he went fishing. I mean, you people don't understand, bro. They think the athlete is selfish, and maybe they are, and that's our fault too. That's our fault too as an adult.
They shouldn't have used them as slave labor for the last 50 years.
Thank you. People just don't understand, man. It's all about money. So respectfully, miss me with that student athlete stuff. That stuff is out the window when USC went to the Big Ten.
100%. And Neilio, if you could clarify your question here, thank you for the $5 donation. He says, this is a really great panel. Quick question for you all. With just how elite the program you guys speak of, how many do OU and Bama have? How many? I just don't know how many is referring to, Neilio.
Can I add one more thing though to what Coach Sean was just saying too? Is the thing about with these scholarship limits that they're talking about, and they're talking about the NFL that it's a 52-man roster or whatever it is, right? Well, the thing is though, the NFL can also, if you get injuries and stuff, you can add players throughout the year.
Yeah,
you can't do that in college football. So if something happens to your guys and you know now you're starting to run out of guys, you're screwed. So to cut those rosters down very far, you're acting like it's the same thing. And again, I don't think that people realize that. I understand that the pay for play model, you want to immediately equate it to the NFL, but college football is not the NFL. So if you're going to change it to an NFL model, you got to change everything about it, which includes your scholarship stuff and all that. I don't know what they're looking at. You have to make it an equitable thing, though, for these kids. I mean, just because of the fact that you are moving to more games, in order, I mean, it's going to turn in. I mean, you're already looking at what are their, if it's been 15 if you were going to win, it's going to be 17 games if you win the national championship now, and it's just going to go up. And
but you're a student, though. You're a student, though, Jason.
Yep, and plus you're a student, right? No, I get it. I just think it's silly talk. I would say that you have to. I hate the idea of not having walk-ons, and it's because again we're going to start making it about money. It's always going to be about money, you know. And I understand that. I mean, look, that's the reality of the world that we live in. It's real, and I get that. But you can't. There's no way that you can keep what people love about college football if you keep changing everything about it. You know, I just hate it. I hate the idea. I hate that idea.
This is the thing I've always said. We think college football is the best sport in America, right? I think everybody on this panel would agree. So why are we continually trying to make it like the sports that we don't like as much? Right? Like I think that college football trumps the NFL by 1,000. I'm not going to lie to you. I've said this before. I did the Bleacher Report show this year. I got so wrapped up in college football. I watched 4 NFL games all year, including the Super Bowl. One, because I just I'm a Vikings fan, but it's hard to say, or it's hard to care. And I guess Apple had a targeted attack on me once again, and my camera has froze. But
yeah,
I can't
guys
stand
giving you guys the
Apple.
eye, motherfucker. No, I'm just kidding. The question: how many walk-ons to? And it's 33. The average is 33 for a Division One team, Neilio. So, and you're saying, was that to your question, Neilio? Was
Yeah,
that
how many walk-ons does teams like Oklahoma and Alabama have?
that are elite, or just or these elite teams in general?
The elite teams.
Yeah, it's
120 total, 85 Scully.
Yeah. So yeah. So, let's see. I know Coach Al's in here, and he just threw something out
Shout
there.
out to Coach Al.
Yeah, Coach Al, you're the man, dude. You're the man. Always appreciate your comments, Coach Al, and jumping in here. And I saw Coach Carl's in here. He was with us last night. And, and Lynn, you've been throwing out some awesome comments. Obviously, Lynn, you're very involved too. So, a lot on these things. And we appreciate that. So, and honestly, everybody in here has been phenomenal. Even Chris Williams, this great Auburn fan, he's talking about winning all these things. And
they need to beat New Mexico State first.
Well, that's Auburn fan. Y'all know that boy a Bama fan. That boy a Bama fan.
Yeah,
Don't even he's a Bama
it's
fan.
all good. Yeah,
fine. It's all good.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a quick story just for you guys because this is pretty hilarious, right? As I look back in high school, and I know you guys like these stories, and I started thinking about them, like, how the hell? Because we were the Tides, right? It was our name was the Tides, okay, or the Tide, right? So, and I'm looking at us, I'm like, it's weird because we used a G, the Georgia G, on our helmet and jerseys, and our colors were navy. What asshole came up with this idea to combine the name of the Crimson Tide, Auburn colors, and the damn Georgia G all within one uniform set? It's either genius or asshole, right? So it was. I thought it was pretty funny, man. Like growing up, I just I was thinking about that the other day, and I'm like, I was looking at old stuff, I'm like, what the hell, dude? This is crazy, man. But
Chris says, go ahead, Coach John.
I was just getting Tink a shout out. My brother Tink in the chat. I seen him. What's up, Tink? Roll Tide, bro.
Oh,
Chris Williams says I would, but there's no saying he would go watch Auburn channels on right now, but only Alabama. Well, I think, Chris, that's because there's not enough intrigue around the Auburn fan base to be able to create a full-time, job or opportunity off of Auburn content. Once you start winning, once you sit on the big boy table, then you'll have shows that can run and talk about Auburn football. But I think all of y'all's 5 fans, you're probably right. There's probably not enough.
Can I say something to him, Ty, when you get a chance?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Chris, you don't never come around when I be around, and we both know why. Let me tell you this, Chris. You talk about Bama more than you talk about your own team, right? Guess why? Because we both know. It's all in fun, right? We all just having fun. But if we're being realistic, the truth is in the details. Your team suck. Your everything about your team suck. Your basketball team suck. Your football team suck. Your fans suck. Your stadium smells. Your city suck. Everything about your team suck. You know that. So that's why you're in every Bama chat, calling the Bama phone line. I wish the hell I would ever be in an Auburn chat or call an Auburn station. If I do, I'm going to tell Ty, Jake, and Jason to slap my ass to the Everglades, right? I don't give a damn about nothing you got going on in your chat, your channel. Respectfully, this is all in love now. This is all in fun. We boys, right? The bottom line is you don't come around with Coach Sean around because I put spelt to ass. You know that, right? You're in here because you're irrelevant. Your school is irrelevant. Y'all don't win nothing but checker tournaments. Like, you suck, right? So I appreciate you. I actually like when you come around because I know you ain't got no damn choice. Go ahead, Ty.
Man, no, that was wow. I just want to say it was an interesting comment, right? Like about us not having jobs and Auburn guys having jobs. Go ahead.
Let me answer. He has a serious question. Answer me this if you don't mind being honest for a second. Yeah. If Hugh Freeze was available today, would you not fire every coach? No. Kalen DeBoer in 2 years as a Division I head coach has done more than Hugh Freeze has done in his entire tenure. So why in the world would I fire Kalen DeBoer for Hugh Freeze when Kalen DeBoer inherited a Washington team that was 4-8 and took them to a national championship?
The stupidest question I've ever even heard. No wonder you got to go on more Alabama channels because you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the sad part about it is he's serious. He's serious.
Oh, good.
That's all you need to know.
And I don't think that Oklahoma fans would fire Brent Venables for Hugh Freeze.
No Absolutely damn not. Way. That's man.
Auburn. Oh, okay.
All right. Lynn says,
I like Chris.
I like Chris too. He's pretty funny.
Yeah, we gotta have the one Auburn fan come in here. But no. To answer your question very seriously, Chris, there's no way I would fire Kalen DeBoer for Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze has. I know, man. I know.
I wouldn't fire. Man, I wouldn't fire the janitor for Hugh Freeze.
No.
Hugh Freeze. Shout out to me and Shanifield.
Kalen DeBoer has already done more as a Division I Power 5 head coach than Hugh Freeze has, and this is his third year in Division I Power 5. He's already been at a national championship. He's 25-3 in 3 years. No, I wouldn't fire Kalen DeBoer for Hugh Freeze. Not even close. And whenever Alabama was thinking about getting Hugh Freeze, you can ask the gentleman on this panel. I was irate. The best decision they ever made was not hiring him because, listen, Hugh Freeze, he might be a good football coach. He has zero integrity. Zero. None. Nilch. Need I bring up what happened at Liberty? I'll save us that one. Lynn with the 25 saying, this is for the hardworking panel. What we can't have the boosters, the most powerful people at the school. Now the issue is to help pay a player or give to the university to build a new gym or bookstore with it. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine, Lynn, and you have such a great insight on this because you do so much around Alabama. I can't imagine what it's been like for you or guys like yourself at these universities over the past year. I'm sure you could tell us that you've seen a massive change in the way everything's going, right? That'd be incredible to sit down with Lynn and talk about the change since he's been involved, since NIL became a thing and now to what it was before, right? I'm sure he'd have such great insight, but thank you very much for the $25, Lynn. See, didn't even make the top 25. What are you talking about, Chris? Bama finished ahead of Auburn in recruiting.
I think he's
he a Bama fan, man.
He hit his head somewhere. He hit his head somewhere.
Yeah, he a Bama fan, bro. It's cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bama finished ahead of Auburn in recruiting. And if we let's look at transfer portal. Where is the damn transfer portal in 20? Here we go.
Yeah. Hey, Ty, real quick. I wanted to shout this out to you from a standpoint of what we're looking at, just recruiting, bringing up the recruiting factor, because Auburn definitely doesn't have these guys showing up. So I want to make sure I bring this up. So you're looking right now, like over the next 4 days, because we have camp going on at Alabama. And then we have official visits. So from an official visitor standpoint, and this is big credit to recruits.bama, and that's on Instagram, but they were able to throw out a little bit of a list. Official visitors, you got Derek Smith, commit. Zamir Smith, commit. Oh, Derek Smith, number 2 athlete. Zamir Smith, number 10 athlete. You got Latsier Brooks, number 15 wide receiver. You have Ty Haywood, number 8 nationally, right? Offensive tackle, tight end Andrew Olish, running back Jordan Davidson, stud out of Modern Day. Love that guy. You got Keelan Russell, running back Todd Robertson, cornerback Chuck McDonald, also out of, I believe, Modern Day. Running back Jamarian Morrow, linebacker UGA commit Jaden Perrelette. He is in campus for official visit. And then you have a D lineman Charles House. All those guys are 4 stars, and you have 1 5-star. There's probably a couple guys who probably be bumped up to potentially 5-star by the end of the year. For camp visitor wise, real quick too, you have the Edge 5-star Edge 2026 class. You have Anthony Jones, tight end Brock Harris 2026 class, 5-star. Running back Demarius Yates 26 class. Safety Caden Hall 26 class. You have 26 class Bryce Perry Wright, safety Preston Ashley, Grant Wise, interior offensive lineman, Mario Nash, interior offensive lineman, linebacker Anthony Davis, and fun enough, this is a good one, Zeke Helton was here camping and he is a Alabama decommit, but it looks like they're making some progress up with him. You also have quarterbacks Samaj Beals, quarterback Jackson Presley, interior offensive lineman Barra McWhorter. You have safety Markel Aguirre and athlete Ziondre Williams, and then you have DB DeAnthony Caldwell, athlete Cam Hood, running back Ian Steed, offensive lineman Camden Goforth, who looked really good. I saw some of his film. He does look good. And right now he's not ranked, but that's just how it plays sometimes. It's going to take a minute. Andrew Beard, running back, and Jabarius Garor, edge. So, I mean, what I listed there's the very minimal 3-star and not ranked. Majority of them are 4 stars, and you have a few 5 stars from 26 to 27. And then I also read that Fabian, right, the quarterback. If you guys help me out with that from the 26th class.
And what's so incredible about that is that this is a staff that has not been there for 6 months. Right, like that, and that's one of the things that, you know, I'm so interested with this Kalen DeBoer. It's why Ty Haywood is going to be so interesting, because you have such great connections, such great relationships at OU. And Brent Venables, Jason, I've talked about this all the time, fantastic at establishing relationships. I mean, I think that's really what separates him from his contemporaries, is that he just is able to establish these really positive relationships very quickly. But I also think that's one of the things that's really separating
it too. Yeah, like you were saying.
Well, I think that's one of the things that separates Kalen DeBoer, is that, yes, we can talk about DeBoer didn't have top classes at Washington. Washington's also a school that very rarely are you going to see in the top 10 of recruiting, right? It's just, it is what it is.
It's hard to recruit too.
What we've already seen at Alabama is that Kalen DeBoer is hitting the ground, and within a month, where other teams have been pushing at someone for a year, he's able to establish a relationship that's competing with those other relationships. Courtney Morgan, right? Fantastic at establishing relationships. I don't see Chris in here anymore. I looked it up, gentlemen, talking about the transfer portal. Bama's ranked number 3 in transfer portal acquisitions for 2024 this past year. Auburn's 28th. And right now, in the class of 2025, Alabama's ranked ahead of Auburn, and they have less commits than Auburn with a higher average recruit rating. So, Chris, I just, I'll pray for you, my friend.
He's
my brother in Christ.
taking a beating here, taking a beating.
Hey, don't you have an affiliation to New Mexico State University, Jason?
Yeah, I got my undergrad there.
So even your team beat Auburn. Look at us. All of our teams beat Auburn this year. Wow. What a time to be alive.
Oh, my gosh. Hey, real quick, though, Neilio was talking about, too, that the Babaloa guy, offensive tackle.
Yeah, I wanted him.
Come down to Alabama and OU, too.
I don't think Bama's in the running for him anymore.
He's so Alabama looks like he with his top 3, Alabama was not within there.
Huh. That's surprising.
Yeah. But OU,
I
mean, and he's great. He's great. If y'all get him, like, hats off. He's fantastic.
Well, that's where I think OU wins, man. I think they win with Babaloa. And I think for him, because his relationship at Alabama had a lot to do with Huff, because they were recruiting him hard at Washington. But then when Huff left, it's hard to get back in the mix there. Granted, yeah, you still have familiarity with the head coach and some of the other guys recruiting, but I think for him, he had a lot of long-term kind of relationship with Huff. And, with Oklahoma, again, you got Bedenbow, I think the only thing that scares recruits from Bedenbow is his picture. You know what I'm saying? Like his picture, he looks crazy as hell.
Yeah, he's an intimidating dude.
It's like he has a chaw on. It's just like, just crazy looking man. I'm just kidding. But I tell you what, like that, that's again, those relationships play a huge part, and especially with a guy like Bedenbow who does what he does. I mean, he is phenomenal.
Well, gentlemen, we have been on for 2 hours and 30 minutes.
I know.
We have talked about OU, Alabama, LSU, Texas, Miami. We clowned on Auburn. This has been a well-rounded show. This is great.
Before you end it, let me say this really, really quickly. because there might be somebody in the chat that doesn't understand this. If you spend your time on social media of your rivals, if you read articles about your rivals, if you watch your rival play on TV more than you watch your own team, if you care about your rival losing more than your own team winning, you are, in fact, by definition, a fan of that said team. And finally, if you stay in the chat of your rivals, you are, in fact, a fan of your rival. Have a good day.
Hit him with the soundboard, Jason.
Who the fuck is that guy?
I love that,
dude. With that, we're gonna get out because that was perfect. We will see y'all on Monday, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, around the table happening once again. Let's go around the table and let everybody know where they can find all your great content, starting with Jason, then Coach Sean, and ending with the one and only Super Trooper Stash, Jake.
Hey, Jason Watkins, Hall of Fame College Football. It's at CFB-pod right here on YouTube. You can catch us. We're putting out content all the time. And then obviously on Twitter, it's at JW_HOF. Welcome anybody onto the show. You know, love the community. Thanks a lot for having me on, Ty. It was a lot of fun, man. And enjoyed talking with both of you guys too as well. Coach Sean, Jake, you guys, welcome on my show anytime too. Ty always is too.
Coach Sean, my man.
Likewise. First of all, giving thanks to Ty for having us on. Thank you so very much. Great panel with Jason and Coach Jay Muir and Ty himself and all the great people in the chat, even you, Chris. All the great people, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm so appreciative. You can find me anywhere at JMHO. Just my humble opinion. JMHO Sports Talk on YouTube and Twitter.
Jake.
Yeah, man, I love it. Very blessed to be with these guys, and honestly, the different panel members that jump in here and the different people that I've got to meet. It's been a lot of fun. Like I said, for a lot of you guys, I'm pretty new to this. I mean, I'm going to work on getting a channel up here this weekend and get some things together and learn some of these things myself. I enjoy talking college football and just honestly getting out there having fun and motivating too. I'm a big motivator. So definitely catch me on Twitter for right now. And hopefully I'll be joining Jason here soon on his show every once in a while or more regularly. I know we've been talking about that. You catch me with Hall of Fame College Football with Jason, the coach. Good one. And then you catch me over on Coach Sean on his channel. We have a lot of fun over there too. If you didn't catch us last night, we had a doubleheader. It was a good one. And that's JMHO Sports and then Coach SBH on the YouTube, man. Make sure you give that a follow and check out the videos. And obviously here at Roundtable Sports with my boy, Ty. And I tell you, man, like we've been going at it, me and Ty now for a little while. We used to duel up over at Bama Football on YouTube. Obviously some things change, which is cool. Change is a good thing, everybody. It's not bad. Everybody, you evolve, and it is what it is. And we appreciate everybody jumping in, coming together, and then jump over at Coach Smook every once in a while over at Coach Smook Network. Have a fun time there too.
Yeah. Shout out to Coach Jance.
Coach Jay,
shout out to Coach Smook.
That's right, man. And then appreciate
all the guys.
Coach Carl from last night.
Coach Carl.
And of course, Brinsky, man, at Sharpshooter.
Brinsky, man, for sure.
I got something to say to Brinsky Sharp next time I
see him.
Yeah.
You're bone to pick with old Brinsky Sharp.
I sent you the link. I sent you the link, Jason. You could have joined in, but you were asleep.
I know.
That's all good.
He may be on tonight with me, so tune in for that one.
That'll be good.
Yeah,
there you go. Yes.
Tonight.
But yeah, so Twitter, it's for me, it's Coach, all capital letters, _J Merr, JMERR, right? JMERR. That's sign language, everybody. I'll tell you what, all capital letters. So. There's another one. I'm just kidding.
Everybody enjoy your weekend. Kimberly, thank you for being here. Moon Rocket, thank you for being here. If I didn't get to call you out, if I didn't get to give you a shout out, just know you are so appreciated over here. Someone said Notice Sharp wasn't on the pod. I sent Brinsky the link as well. I sent it to Jason and Brinsky.
I think he's
probably working. Yeah. So it was, it was what it was. But we will be back Monday evening, 5:30 Central Standard Time, doing our roundtable. Hope you all enjoy your weekend. Once again, if I didn't get to give you a shout out, just know I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the time. Two things in life that are the most important are health and time. And you guys being here with us, giving us your time, that means the world. If you donated, thank you so much for the contribution. It means more than I can possibly tell you. And until next time, allow me to introduce you to the fifth, and dare I say, best member of the panel, certainly the most handsome, the spinning wheel of doom. And it spins.
Roll
and
Tide.
spins.